Okay, we will reconvene the special meeting. Mr. City Attorney, is there any final action to report out?
No final action tonight, Madam Vice Mayor.
Okay, then we will adjourn the special meeting and call to order the regular meeting of the Folsom City Council on Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Council members Rodriguez.
Here.
Rohrbaugh.
Here.
Chalem-Cherla.
Here.
Aquino.
Here.
And Kozlowski is absent.
Okay, if you'd all please remove your hats and rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would the clerk, or do we have any agenda updates?
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor. We have an additional information transmittal for item 11 on tonight's agenda. A copy has been previously provided to you, and it is also available on the table in the back.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk please call the first item?
Okay, that takes to your first scheduled presentation item this evening. This is item number 1, a resolution of commendation honoring the Folsom Junior Bulldogs for earning the 2023 Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award. If you're out there in the hallway, bring them on in.
That's right.
Sure. Yeah, let me read this to you first. And here, I thought all of you were here for the budget presentation later tonight. Okay, this is always one of our favorite meetings of the year. It is my pleasure to issue a resolution of commendation honoring the Folsom Junior Bulldogs for earning the 2023 Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award. Whereas the Folsom Junior Bulldogs is an official youth football and cheer association in Folsom, and whereas the Folsom Junior Bulldogs organization is committed to both academic and athletic excellence, and whereas members of the Folsom Junior Bulldog football and cheer teams maintain a grade point average of 3.0 or better during the football and cheer season, and whereas this level of academic achievement merits recognition from the Board of Directors of Folsom Youth Football and Cheer and the City of Folsom. So therefore, on behalf of our mayor, Michael Kozlowski, and the Folsom City Council and the Folsom community, we hereby extend commendations in the highest regard to the members of the Folsom Junior Bulldogs who earned the Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award 2023 and encourage their continued scholastic excellence in the future. Commended this 13th day of February 2024. So before we get started with having these young folks come here, I just want to take just a minute to address all of you young student athletes, because I want to congratulate you, but I want to thank you for being such outstanding individuals and citizens, not only on the field, but in the classroom as well. When you wear that sweatshirt or that jersey and it says Folsom on it, that means something to all of us. It means you're not only representing your family and yourselves and your team, but you're representing the city of Folsom and all 85,000 residents. So thank you for doing such a good job of that, okay?
Awesome.
Okay, the kids are going to announce themselves. So first up,
My name is Isaac Kozovic, and I'm in 4th grade, and I play for the Folsom Junior Pee-wees. I'm Lucas Collier. I'm in 5th grade, and I play for the Folsom Junior Pee-wees. My name is Zachariah Kozovic. I'm in 4th grade, and I play for the Folsom Junior Bulldog Pee-wees.
My name's Noah Wilson, Folsom Junior Bulldogs, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name's Miracle.
what did you cheer for?
The Folsom Bulldog mascots.
Yes, you did. Good job.
My name is Europa, and I play for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs. And I'm in third grade. I'm Audrina Martinez, and I play for the Junior Pee Wee of Folsom Junior Bulldogs. And I'm in third grade. My name is Janessa McCall. I cheer for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs, and I'm in third grade.
Hello, I'm Addison Benavides. I am in 5th grade, and I cheer for the Folsom Pee Wees.
I'm Bryn French, and inside of 4th grade, and I'm for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs.
My name is Isabella King, and I cheer for the Folsom Bulldogs, and I'm in 6th grade.
Hi, I'm Penelope Rodriguez, and I am in 4th grade, and I cheer for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs.
Hi, I'm Tucker Kestrel, and I'm in 6th grade, and I play football for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs.
Hi, my name is Ethan, and I'm in 6th grade, and I cheered for the Folsom Junior. Wait a second. Wait a second. I played for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs. Kiwi.
My name is Clay Jackson. I'm in 6th grade, and I play for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs.
My name is Griffin Martinez. I'm in 5th grade, and I play for the Folsom Pee Wee Bulldogs.
Hi, my name is Braxton, and I play for the Pee Wee team, and I'm in 5th grade.
Hi, I'm Brady Silva. I'm in 7th grade, and I play for the Folsom Junior Midgets.
Hi, my name is Nick Stone, and I'm in 6th grade, and I play for the Junior Bulldogs.
Hi, my name is Brent Beiersdorf, and I'm in 7th grade, and I play for the Junior Midgets.
Hi, my name's Ayla Grill. I'm in 6th grade, and I play for FJB.
Hi, my name's Tessa Herrera. I cheered for FJB, and I'm in 6th grade.
Hi, my name's Sophia Ortega, and I cheer for the Folsom Junior Midgets, and I'm in 6th grade.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah Pierce, and I'm in 6th grade, and I cheer for the Folsom Junior Midgets.
Hi, I'm Melissa Vergara, and I'm in 6th grade, and I cheer for the Folsom Junior Midgets.
My name is Tessa Biorgi. I'm in 7th grade, and I cheered for the Folsom Midgets.
I'm Shayla Hanrahan. I'm in 8th grade, and I cheered for the Folsom Midgets.
I'm Chloe Herrera. I'm in 8th grade, and I cheered for the Folsom Junior Midgets.
I'm Mason Woodward. I'm in 8th grade, and I play for the Midgets.
I'm Braxton Martinez. I'm in 8th grade, and I play for the Midgets.
I'm Corey Redmond, and I play for the Midgets.
I'm Jalen Todd Pierce, and I play for the Folsom Midgets.
Another big hand for all the players, coaches, and you parents. Thank you. If you'd like to stay for the budget presentation, you're welcome, but if you want to leave, now is your opportunity. Thank you.
Good show. Oh, nice.
I'll call it.
One more.
Okay, as our Bulldogs leave the room, we'd like to call the second scheduled presentation item this evening, and that would be a resolution of commendation honoring the leadership Folsom class of 2022-23 for receiving the 2023 Folsom Arts Achievement Award.
Okay, I think we have Maribel Wyatt and Kat Berry here from the Arts and Culture Commission, but if you're a member of the leadership class, also please come on down. I see a few of you here. Oh, this is great. Okay. So this is another resolution of commendation honoring the leadership Folsom class of 2022-23 for receiving the 2023 Folsom Arts Achievement Award. Whereas the Art Achievement Award is presented to recognize and honor the leadership Folsom class of 2022-23. And whereas the Folsom leadership class created and executed Heartbeat of Folsom, a community project that exhibited a series of beautifully designed and painted heart sculptures. And whereas through a thoughtful process, the leadership class issued a call for artists to design and paint 20 hearts that were sponsored by 20 area businesses and organizations. And whereas the Folsom leadership class identified Folsom Powerhouse Ministries as the beneficiary of collected monies that amount to a $20,000 contribution. And whereas the vision of Leadership Folsom is for every project to have a positive impact on our city, our community, and our region. And whereas the Folsom Leadership Class of 2022-23 is recognized for their dedication to the arts and for their outstanding commitment to beautify our community one heart at a time. So on behalf of Mike Kozlowski, the mayor of Folsom, and the City Council, and the Arts and Culture Commission, we do hereby extend commendations in the highest regard to the Folsom Leadership Class of 2022-23 for receiving the Folsom Arts Achievement Award, commended this 13th day of February 2024. Let me just say that I'm glad that I was a member of the class of 2013 because I would not want to be the class of 24 going after you guys. So great job. Maribel, you want to say a word?
No, just thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody from the leadership class want to
Sure. As a part of Choose Folsom, Joe Gagliardi, our CEO and president, definitely instilled in me to want to join the leadership class. And I really feel honored and special because our leadership class it's going to be hard to beat. We were a class of 34 strong, and we had so many brilliant ideas brought to the table. Heather Hoffman was the one that spearheaded this idea, and we took it and ran with it, and we're so excited that Folsom gets to enjoy our class's legacy for years to come. Thank you all so much.
Would you all like to tell us what name and grade you're in, just like the Folsom Bulldogs?
Y'all want to tell your age?
That's sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we got the fun stuff out of the way.
We want them for budget meeting, right?
Yes, we want them for the budget meeting too.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to business from the floor. This is the public's opportunity to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. But please understand that because you're going to speak to us about something that's not on the agenda, we are prohibited from entering an extensive dialogue with you or taking any action. So with that said, Madam City Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, you have 5 requests to speak this evening under business from the floor. I'll call the next speaker and I'll let you know who's on deck. So our first speaker tonight will be Dave C. Dave will be followed by Sandy M., who will be followed by Debbie Woolley. So Dave C., come on down. Okay. Okay, Sandy.
Come to the microphone right here, please, the little one. Yep.
So I'm Sandy, that's Debbie, and that's Dave.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Council. We have packets for you and for the clerk, so if you can show me who to give them to, we'd be happy to distribute them.
You can give them to this officer right over here.
Yes, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having us. Thank you. Good evening, Council. We are coming to you this evening in peace as we the people to give you notice and instruction so that you and your agents may provide due care. This national lockdown notice has already been given to 50 state governors, to the President of the United States, to the Supreme Court, to the United States Senate, and the United States Congress. We are now giving you a copy. You have sworn oaths to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution just as those other elected officials have as well. In January, we learned that the federal government, in alignment with the World Health Organization, has announced an amendment to a credible threat of a public health emergency. Their expanding countermeasures now include both Ebola and Marburg viruses, and extension of liability immunity to manufacturers, distributors, program planners, qualified persons, and their officials, agents, and employees. We have included this report in our notice envelope just given to you. We have also learned that the government was never granted any authority to lock down the people, even in times of emergency. The main object of government is the protection and preservation of personal rights, private property, and public liberties. The government just serves for our benefit as public officers, trustees, and servants of the people. We are also attaching a list of unalienable rights, which includes the right to accept or refuse any medical treatment for any reason. Since this council has a history of putting the city under health emergency orders for extended periods of time, we are very concerned that another round of involuntary lockdowns and health orders could occur in our fair city.
Hi, I'm Debbie Woolley, and I'm coming from We the People. Please take notice that all states in our Republican form of government have sworn to protect individual liberty as a condition to be hired as trustees. The people of America are all guaranteed the same rights in all the states. As an elected official, do you believe it is your duty to always protect the natural rights of the people so that they are guaranteed enjoyment of all their natural rights? Or do you believe that in some time of panic or emergency that you can remove the people's rights to freely exercise liberty, movement, worship, commerce, or any other purpose that is lawful? If so, please provide constitutional authority where you get that power. Posting this granted authority conspicuously within the next 15 days, notifying the public and all agents. If you cannot show where you got the authority and you take any action blocking the people's rights to enjoy freedom, then any lockdown, mandate, or forced use of a medical device will be construed as being done with malice, intent, full knowledge, and understanding against your trust indenture, your contract with the people. That would be the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Oh, do you have something also?
I was just going to say, my name's Dave C., and I wanted to thank the City Council for your hard work and dedication to the City of Folsom. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out.
Okay, our next speakers will be Ron Pfister, followed by Stacy Sheets, who will be followed by the Folsom Pickleball Club.
Come on up, Ron.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Ron, and it's Feaster, but
Feaster. Sorry, thank you.
that's all right. I'm a resident of Folsom. I've been here for 18 years. And this isn't quite as major as what's going on, but I live across the street from the.
I'm Stacy
Oh,
Sheets
hi.
with you, so
Yes,
I'll
jump
join
right
you,
in here.
so we could do it together.
All right. I live right across the street from the emergency-only gate that goes into the high school's sports field, where their football and soccer field is.
Vista Del Lago High School.
Yes, I'm sorry, Vista Del Lago High School. Good. Make sure I get this right. But living right across the street from the gate, I've watched, the kids are getting more cars at a much younger age, and it seems like each winter and spring, they get more cars and they don't have any place to park. So they're starting to come up and they're parking on the street where the fence is, where it's emergency only access. And they're parking on the street, and up until now, they've just been on the one side of the street that is the high school side. But they do a number of things. They always seem to empty their trash, their lunch boxes, their lunch bags, and that right on my sidewalk. So that's frustrating, and I've been putting up with it for quite a few years, but it hasn't been a big deal. This year, we've got more kids and more cars, and they're now parking on that side of the street, and there's up to about 18 to 20 cars on the school side of the street and on the side of the street where we live. So now they're taking up all our parking spots and that over there, and they're still leaving their trash and so on. They're clever. The first kid there will jump the fence and open the gate. And then he props the gate open, and here lately he uses a nice cone, beautiful cone, and leaves the gate open and propped open all day and the night if I don't catch it and close it. And it's causing a real problem. It's an emergency access only, and there's a big sign. I've got pictures if you want to see them, but there's a big sign on the gate that says emergency access personnel only. And the kids they're stuck. I know they're stuck, but gosh, there's just so many of them and they're blocking the street. And kids will be kids, and so every day there's at least one or two of them that race down the street to see if they can get up to 90 miles an hour going down Caversham Way. And they start up at your place.
Yeah, or they do 14-point turns because they're trying to learn how to drive in and out of that section.
So, Ron,
I know that the police have been doing things down on the street on Caversham at the start of Caversham and Serpa, and they've done some things with signs and whatnot. I don't know if that's what it's going to take, but I want to say the high school has become a real poor neighbor.
Okay. I also live across from Vista Del Lago, so you're in my district, and I will follow up with you tomorrow, and we'll figure out a solution. Okay?
There's a little more.
But we only give you 3 minutes, so I'm going to see if Stacy has
did I
anything
use
that
it
she
all?
has to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you would like my 3 minutes,
Nope, we don't cede time. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm just the block captain of
Okay.
Caversham Neighborhood Watch, and so I'm supporting the neighbors. I live a little further up, but I do see a lot of the driving back and forth of the kids and the speeding, and it's just a lot for us to
Right, okay.
handle as a neighborhood. So thank you for
Yeah.
anything that we can do to move it forward.
Can I have like 10 seconds?
Yep.
I didn't get to that one subject. When I said they're not a good neighbor, they have a field there, and if you live over there, you know what I'm talking about. I'm deaf in one ear, so when I can hear from inside my house last week, they were playing soccer, and the soccer PA was up so loud that with all the doors closed, all the windows closed, drapes closed, I could barely hear my TV.
Right, okay.
Over the sound of the...
So some of this is the jurisdiction of the school district, but
Yes, it is.
but I will contact you both tomorrow, and we'll get together with the school board member, and we'll get these things worked out. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
all your
all.
hard
Thank you.
work, everybody.
Okay. Next speaker.
Okay, your last speaker under business from the floor is the Folsom Pickleball Club.
I would like to speak on Margie.
Welcome.
Hi. I know we have a short period, so we'll try to be quick. We do have a slideshow that is
I got
going
it for
up.
you. Yep, it's on its way.
So we're from the Folsom Pickleball Club. My name is Ferd Gallinado. I'm the vice president. Tracy Lind, our club treasurer, and we're not really here to ask you for anything. We're just here to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to work with the city to make renovations to the courts to improve our play and to service the pickleball community in town. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America, and it doesn't seem like you can turn on the TV without seeing some kind of pickleball, whether it's a news about somebody opening up new courts in town, or whether it's an injury type related information, or just commercials. So anyways, it's a booming sport, and we're just happy that we can keep working with the city to accommodate everybody else. I mean, we do have some plans down the road, and we'd love to talk with you about that, but that's not the time or the place. We loaded some pictures from our grand opening. Derek is up there with us. Derek's been working with us for the last 5 years as far as relaying what we want, and he's been invaluable. That was Lemby Park in 2014. Those are my kids playing pickleball with wooden paddles and wiffle ball. Nobody knew what the sport was. They would ask me what we were doing, and I'm saying, we're playing pickleball. And they thought I was making it up. But looking at it now, those courts have been renovated into 12 permanent courts, and it's beautiful. On any given day, you'll have 150 to 200 people come out and use those courts. 12 courts hold 48 people. We have people standing around waiting to rotate in. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And it's a close-knit family, so it's great. The community loves it. These are things that we have done. You want to take over?
Okay, I don't mind.
Okay. She handles the money.
Okay, so now I have to talk. So when we first did the project 3 years ago, we stood in front of you guys saying thank you so much for our partnership, because you contributed all the labor to get those 8 additional courts, and then we just paid for the materials. So it was the first collaboration between the cities. And then we got all 12 courts, and now the last 2 weeks, we've had the fence taken down because it was an old fence, and we've had it replaced, a lower fence as well as gates on this side of the court, so it's easier access for the players, because the other side was muddy and things like this. And then coming on here, you see again the new fence, which is lower, and then access gates, as I just said, to the courts. And then the cost of this to us was $31,000. We have 752 members of the Folsom Pickleball Club, active members, and because of them, we were able to do these renovations, which we obviously hope to continue, and we have a few, as Ferd said, other ideas that we'd like to have. We have volunteers that come out and help us regularly when we have our days to obviously improve the construction around the courts and keep it clean and neat. We had 37 on Saturday just coming out of the Folsom Club members, because obviously we want to maintain it and make it a good and safe place for everyone who's playing. Just some of the volunteers, at least they're smiling, so obviously we're doing something right. Okay, that's just another view of the courts. And this, if some of you don't know, these courts are behind the Lemby Aquatic Center. And next to the basketball court. So if you guys would like to come out and join us, please feel free to come out and join us. That's what it looks like when you're walking down to the courts. The other thing is, again, it's so nice to have pickleball at the Andy Morrill Sports Complex. We actually started playing pickleball there first time. I played starting, 2014 was the first time we played pickleball at the sports complex. So pickleball is the first to take off in Folsom, apart from all the other cities. So that's another bragging rights for us. And then, of course, another view of the city, and just to say again, thank you to the city that we have this opportunity to work with you guys and have these beautiful courts. But the other one is to please come out and play with us and enjoy it with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We greatly appreciate the partnership with your club, and please extend our appreciation to all of your members.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other requests from business from the floor?
I had a hand raised on the WebEx call, but now it's gone down. So let me keep an eye on that, and I'll circle back if the hand gets raised again. Okay. I'm not seeing it, so we can move on, and I will just keep my eye on it.
Okay. Call the next item, please.
Okay, that takes you to your consent calendar, and you do have one request to pull item number 11 for comment.
Okay, and I'm going to pull number 5. Would anybody else like to pull something?
I will move items 3 through 12 with the exception of 5 and 11 on the consent calendar.
I'll second on that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
And Aquino?
Yes. And my question for number 5, Stacy, maybe this is for you. I'm just curious, do the processing, the company that's doing the payments, do they differentiate between a credit card and a debit card, or do they charge us a service fee regardless of what somebody uses?
They use it as a credit card, all of them as a credit card.
Okay,
there's
so
no
even if you're using your debit
differentiation.
card, you're going to pay that service fee?
Correct.
Okay, that's the only question I had. So I will move adoption of resolution number 11162.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Council members Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
And Aquino?
Yes. And then we have a request to speak on number 11.
Yes, you did. You request to speak from Deborah Grassel?
Welcome.
Good evening, council members. Hi, my name is Deborah Grassel. I'm a resident of the Lake Natoma Shores Lighting and Landscaping District, and I'm here tonight with two fellow residents, Terry Sorensen and Janine Fox, and we're here tonight to speak in support of Mary Johnson being appointed to that Lighting and Landscaping District. Mary is a longtime resident. We've known her for a very long time, and she is well known to everyone and well respected in our community. And most certainly, she would be more than able to serve and be a responsive advocate of our community's landscape and lighting needs. So we wholeheartedly wish that you will elect her to our Lighting and Landscaping District as our representative. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming out with that endorsement. Any other questions or comments on item 11? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I will move item number 11 on the consent count. Is that right? 11 on the consent calendar?
I'll second on that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Council members Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
And Aquino?
Yes. All right, moving right along.
Okay, that takes you to your first new business item this evening. This will be item number 13, direction on the future steam train operations at Folsom City Lions Park.
Come on up, Liz.
I'm on it. Sorry.
Okay, good evening, City Council members. My name is Liz Voggy. I'm your Senior Management Analyst for your Parks and Recreation Department. And I'm here to talk to you this evening about the future of our steam train operations here in City Lions Park. As you all know, there is a small-scale train that operates just outside of the Folsom Zoo Sanctuary. Sorry, I need to turn my presentation on. How do I send a projector? There we go, maybe.
It just takes a second, Liz.
Okay.
There you go.
So we have a small-scale steam train that operates outside of the zoo sanctuary. It's actually been there since 1970. It was originally built in 1950 and operated in Tilden Regional Park. It was brought here in 1970, and Terry Gold has owned and operated it since 1991, so for well over 30 years. With that, our current concessionaire, Terry Gold, doing business as Folsom Valley Railway, he's planning to relocate and sell the operation in early 2024. And they have a buyer lined up who intends to move the railway out of state. So Terry has come to us and has offered to sell the railway to the city of Folsom for $375,000. He's offered us the flexibility of a payment plan without interest, where we would pay $75,000 due in year one and $50,000 each subsequent year until 2030 when it's fully paid off. And the operation includes a steam train, also known as the Cricket, a diesel electric engine, cattle car, gondolas, caboose, tracks, switches, gauges, barn, and various tools.
Meeting got muted.
And what
I
I've learned
can't
in my
hear you.
research for this is that it's a very specialized industry, and I am definitely not a train expert. So we consulted with RMI Railworks to get an evaluation of the train. And one thing from their evaluation, they did note that if the city operates this venue, it is strongly recommended not to operate the steam engine on a regular basis, as the cost of operation and safety concerns should be a strict consideration. Operation of the steam engine requires an experienced operator familiar with steam and maintenance of the equipment. So in consulting with other experts in the industry, they agree it takes about 6 months to really learn how to operate that. It's a skilled profession, and there's just a lot to learn, and you want to make sure you're learning from a qualified OSHA instructor. And moving forward with our background, we're under a current agreement with Terry Gold of Golden Spike Entertainment. It expires in the end of this year, December 31st, 2024. There are some options to extend. He currently pays us a land use fee to operate out of City Lions Park. So it's about $19.67 per month, or $23,000 per year. And per Terry Gold, the train operation is profitable and generates gross revenue between $130,000 to $168,000 annually. Net revenues between $102,000 and $140,000. It's important to note that the net revenue does not reflect his time for the operations. And it's also important to note that we have not conducted a review of his tax returns or profit and loss statements of the business, because we want to seek your direction first. So ultimately, we've developed 4 options for your consideration, and we're asking for you to provide us on which option to explore further.
You're now allowed to unmute
And
yourself
so I'll dive into
anytime by
some of our
pressing
options that we
*6.
came up with. Option 1 would be to further evaluate the purchase and operation of Folsom Valley Railway. And with that, there's a number of items to consider. One, of course, we would have to do a thorough review of the business records. 2, we would have to consider negotiating the sales price with Mr. Gold. But if we were to purchase it, we would have direct control over the ticket prices. There could be potential for higher profitability. But other considerations include additional staffing needs and expenses associated with that. So we would need at least 2 full-time staff members. And if they were under the classification of a senior recreation coordinator, that is upwards of $130,000 annually. If they were a recreation coordinator 2, it would be upwards of $118,000 annually. And then also, we would need funds associated with the operations and maintenance of the operation. And Terry has said that it's costing around $50,000 annually for the operations and maintenance.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Did you say 40,000?
50, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
50, okay.
Yeah, that's a rough number that he provided. And it's important to note that we don't currently have any funds allocated for the purchase or staffing of the scale steam train. Option 2 is very similar to option 1. It's to further evaluate the option to purchase the railway and solicit an RFP for the train operations and maintenance. So like the first one, we would need to conduct a thorough review of the business records, potentially negotiate the sales price, and with that, we could have direct control over ticket prices, potential for higher profitability. And while there's no additional staffing needs, there could be additional expenses associated with the future contractor, or we could consider some kind of profit share arrangement with the future contractor. However, with an RFP, there's no guarantee of suitable responses, so we might just end up buying equipment and not have anybody available who could operate the train. And like option 1, there's no funds currently allocated for the purchase of the steam train operation. Option 3 is a new one. It's to decline the purchase and further evaluate options to solicit an RFP for a new scale train and railway in the park. So in an effort to come up with an agreement similar to what we have with Terry, We could have a concessionaire come in, operate their own train and railway operation, their own business there, and then pay us a land use fee to operate in City Lions Park. This would allow other entities to that are interested in operating their own railway to come forward. We would lose control over the revenue and pricing, and there's no guarantee of suitable responses to the RFP, which could potentially lead to a vacant site for an unknown duration. And while we don't have the metrics to support this, there is concern that it could potentially decrease attendance at the Folsom Zoo Sanctuary or events held at City Lions Park. And then option 4 would be to decline the purchase and further evaluate options to convert to another use. So that could be consider converting the area to a walking path, to purchase a trackless train similar to the Sacramento Zoo and Roseville Fountains, or even consider putting in a brand new train operation on tracks similar to what we have right now. Both the walking path and the trackless train are low maintenance, and then all of those options do require an upfront cost for improvements to the site and maintenance of the trackless train or track train. A trackless train and the walking path, you would not have the same draw as the scale engine on tracks. We have a lot of adult hobbyists in the area who are drawn to that scale steam train. They love to ride it too. It's not just for children. So that's something to consider with this option. And again, like the others, there are no funds allocated for improvements to the site or the purchase of an additional train. And then if it's to remain vacant or just be converted to a walking path, there's a potential for decrease in attendance to the zoo sanctuary and special events. So we're coming to you to ask for direction on the future of the steam train operations, and we would like for you guys to select an option that you would like to evaluate further for us to come report back on at a later date potentially. And I also have Terry Gold is here, I believe. There he is. And so he and I are both available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for Liz, Councilmember Chalem-Churlo? Nothing right now? Councilmember Vorbaugh? Okay.
No, I got all my questions answered in agenda review.
Okay. I do have a couple questions. I also have no expertise when it comes to trains, but I know people who do.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading the evaluation done by RMI or whatever, it looked like they did not evaluate the boiler. Is that correct?
So I went back to RMI, and they had used stock photos from Terry's website. So they did evaluate the cricket. I'm not sure if they evaluated the boiler. I'm pulling up the report right now. But they did evaluate the cricket, and it was here on site. I know that much, and they had it up and running.
Okay, yeah. Based on my recollection, it didn't sound like they did. Some of the feedback that I got from my contact said, what is the condition of the boiler? A bad boiler that needs to be replaced can be expensive. A bad boiler is also a safety issue. Yes, it runs and operates well, but that does not mean the boiler is good.
Okay.
And then the second thing, you had mentioned something about don't operate it very often. Can you clarify that?
So in that evaluation by RMI Railworks, they were cautioning us against the steam train just because it's such a specialized operation. They were really leading us to use the diesel electric on a regular basis because we would need qualified people to operate the steam engine. That's pretty much all the statements said. Oh, sorry, I didn't have it in my notes on there. I had it in my secret notes.
Okay, and again, and I have no idea if this person knows what he's talking about or not.
Yeah.
I just reached out to my contacts. What he said is if we do buy this train, we need to run the steam regularly, as that is what keeps a good boiler by exercising it. So I have no idea if that's the case or not, but I thought I would throw those out there. So so based on the research that you've done, if we were to decline Mr. Gold's offer and try to go buy a new train and new set of tracks and basically replicate what's there. It did look like that was more expensive than the $375,000.
It is. It's about, and I ran this by another train company, and they're saying between 500 and 575. That includes one locomotive. It's a diesel electric. It would not be a steam engine, but it includes the gondolas, the cattle car, the caboose, the tracks, all of the above, and it would be brand new.
Okay, all right. Do we have a speaker card for Mr. Gold? Would you like to address the council? Come on down.
Terry, of course, can speak better about the boilers.
The boiler is virtually new.
Okay.
The boiler has just been...
Right into the microphone, please, so that it gets picked up.
The boiler is basically brand new. The original boiler has been replaced approximately about 5 or 6 years ago. So
Okay.
the boiler is virtually brand new, and new tubes.
Okay.
So,
Anything else we should know?
well, basically, the train is, I think they mentioned before that the train might be going to Utah, though. That's tracks, literally everything is going to be going to Utah. He wants to do this kind of operation in Utah. Basically, in my opinion, I think you should keep the steam engine because a lot of people, I just got an email just a couple of days ago saying, when are you going to run the steam engine again? So it is expensive to operate. It burns approximately 1.5 gallons per hour in kerosene, where this diesel electric only burns 1.5 gallons per day. So it is a little bit cheaper to operate. It also takes, as she mentioned, light rail. It does take somebody who has to know what they're doing to operate the steam engine. So I do understand that.
Any questions for Mr. Gold?
Mr. Gold, I know you have been here for last 30 years. Thank you for operating and
I
bringing
enjoy
the...
what I do.
Yes, thank you. And while you are giving this offer to city, have you floated this among your circle? And I'm curious to hear.
I have several people. I now have about 3 people who are now interested of purchasing the railroad and keeping it here. So I do have a couple of people. I also have some people here in the audience who are also interested in purchasing the railroad. This has just came up recently. So
Right.
before this whole process started, this was not an option at the time, but now it is an option. So I have 3 people who are interested in purchasing it, and they do have lots of experience with steam engines. One person actually works at Disneyland as we speak as a steam engineer, and he's got a lot of experience running steam engines as well as I do. So I have those people, and then I have these people here also has experience running trains too. So, and then I have another person who also knows a lot about steam engines. So
Right.
they're all interested in running steam engines here at the park.
Thank you for saying, because I always push on the public-private partnership. We want to partner.
Correct.
And we want to keep the history in town.
Right.
So that's a great news.
Just a note, if you take this train out, remember, this train is grandfathered in because of the scale. If you pull this train out, you will not be able to run another train, an actual train on tracks on the existing layout that you have now because the radiuses are too tight.
Right. That's not the first option we are looking at. We want to keep it here.
Right.
And work with our private community members or the nonprofits, whosoever it is.
So these people right here are more than welcome if you want to talk to them. They'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, that's the first question I have because our best interest is Folsom has a history with trains, right? Number 2 track in the country in the California.
It's the only one left in the United States of its size and scale. This is
Wow.
It's the only one left because everybody's gone to the next scale larger, which is now 15-inch narrow gauge, and mine is a 12-inch narrow gauge.
Yeah, but thank you, though, Terry. When I came to this town in 2002, my older daughter Teja, my younger one was not born that time. So, yep, we got in. That's one of those things.
Okay.
So
21
Terry,
years. Thank you.
I just want to give some feedback. So I reached out to about 20 people who have been here a long time
Right.
and asked them about their feedback on this particular topic. And every one of them had mentioned the memories that their children had when they were little and getting on the train. And it and it brought me to the memories of my now 18-year-old who was little at the time, and he would go it's just the memories that have been created for many, many, many families are priceless. So
Well,
thank
as
you.
I said before, I enjoy what I do. I
Yeah.
really do. But
Can I ask you, are
Yes.
you also a professional photographer?
Yes.
Okay, because here's a memory I had. I just bought a professional camera. I don't know, it must have been 15 years ago, and I had it on me, and you actually educated me on taking better photos with at that time it was a Nikon D80, but you gave me just a lot of pointers, and so I remember that about you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I love Nikons. I love Nikon.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rohra, any questions for Mr. Gold? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Request to speak.
Yeah, you do have a request to speak on this item, but it does look like we have somebody on the line with their hand up. So if you want to go ahead and address the council now. Sorry, there's no name with this caller, but if you're on the line and you have your hand raised, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, we'll circle back to you. In the meantime, we'll start with the callers speakers in the room. First will be Catherine Prudhomme, followed by James Prudhomme, followed by, looks like Cadron Prudhomme. Caden. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Prudhomme, a daughter, mother, businesswoman, photographer, ironically, educator, and program specialist in service of 25 years with 2 teaching credentials, a bachelor's and a master's degree. More importantly, however, I'm a person of heart who passionately supports all things railroad and wants to give back to the community. More specifically, it's my pleasure to stand before you deeply rooted in the history of the sacred city, continuing to support and foster our railroad ties. Pun intended. Just as we recently sat in the chairs of this room advocating in support of PSVRR, we stand before you tonight presenting our commitment to partner with the City of Folsom to carry our irreplaceable tradition that Folsom Valley Railway provides through the unceasing commitment of Terry Gold. Our family shares the passion our city has for the railroad and continuing to uphold what sets our dynamic city apart from others nearby. We take to heart the indelible mark that we leave on those that live in Folsom or visit and want to carry on the torch in operating the Cricket and diesel engine just as Terry has done for over 30 years. The railroad is a staple of Folsom, and the heart is the warmth, the kindness, the efficiency, customer service, and experience that Terry Gold provides to all those near and far that ride his rails. The 5.5-minute ride transports and immerses our customers in an experience from the time they walk up to purchase the tickets or a souvenir, get their pictures taken, and board the train to help them get off the train to then purchase tickets to ride again or come back in the near future when they visit. Our family has had the privilege of experiencing the art and science of Terry over several decades aboard the Folsom Valley Railway and deeply understand the balance of the heart, which is the art, and the science, which are the business aspects, that build the solid foundation upon which it stands. And we want nothing more than to continue that legacy through the heart and hands of our family. We've dreamed of owning and operating a railroad that not only offers rides to multi-generations, as we stand before you today, and just to experience what we've had over the years and provide an unforgettable experience to keep Folsom as a standalone city and best of its class. Folsom is defined by experiences. For those who visit the day, a weekend, or decide to make Folsom their permanent place of residence, a common thread that connects us all is Folsom feels like home. We want to continue what is deeply rooted here, thanks to Mr. Gold and the partnership with the City of Folsom, which is why we stand before you this evening, not only for your consideration, but for your blessing. James?
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be James Prudhomme, followed by Caden Prudhomme, followed by Kyle Winberg.
Thank you, council members, for allowing us to talk with you, share. As you heard, we have, as a family, a deep passion for trains. Started as a young child, but in high school, I had a unique opportunity to ride a train from Sacramento to Missouri 8 times, like 2 years of high school back and forth, and that kind of solidified interest in trains. My father-in-law worked for the SP as a car maintenance person and also a brakeman. And we bring, as a family, a drive and a commitment and a history of success in terms of endeavors that we take on. And personally, I joined the Army after high school during the Vietnam War and spent 2 years overseas as a medic. That's just part of who I am, and what I bring is commitment and drive and passion. Honorably discharged, went to college here, and got 2 teaching credentials and 2 master's degrees, and successfully entered a field of working for a private nonprofit agency with a $2 million budget, and oversaw quality assurance in terms of providing service to consumers. In that role, I actually went to become an assistant director of that agency, and I became very convinced of the importance of public-private partnerships and how strong that is in terms of cost effectiveness and the competence and efficiency in operations, and also directly connected to the people that we serve. There's like a very direct path to service. So it's in that spirit that we are convinced that the public-private enterprise that Terry has had with the city is something we passionately wish to continue. And Terry has provided us with an opportunity to work with him for a 6-month period to assure a smooth transition in operating the railroad the way he does. And we bring actually some rail experience and experience with engines and locomotives and steam as well to the table. So working with Terry, it would be a smooth transition over a 6-month period to keep on the tradition that he has provided, and hopefully go for another 30 years, 40 years. Not me, but Caden. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Caden, come on up.
Okay, next speaker is Caden, who will be followed by Kyle Winberg, who will be followed by James Harville.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to speak briefly on our family qualifications with trains. We all own and maintain and operate a miniature 7.5-inch gauge locomotive and 7-car train. And we run that at the Sacramento Valley Live Steamers, as we are active members and volunteers out there. My family and I, we volunteer at the Placerville-Sacramento Valley Railroad with motor cars and heavy equipment operations and restoration. We all volunteer at the Nevada County Narrow Gauge Railroad with steam locomotive operations and steam restorations, as well as the El Dorado and Western Railroad with heavy operations and motor car operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Caden,
Yes, ma'am.
you're 14 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I met Caden riding the El Dorado Western train, and I was blown away when I found out how old he was, how young really you are and mature. You're definitely the future of the railroad in Folsom. So thank you and your family for coming out.
Thank you, Ms. Aquino. I appreciate it.
Okay, next speaker, Kyle Winberg, followed by James Harville.
Welcome, Kyle.
Good evening. So I come to you kind of uniquely qualified to talk on this topic. I have been in conversation with Terry Gold since 2016 to try to purchase the railroad from Mr. Gold. The simple fact that we have not purchased the railroad and why we're here today is because the asking price of $375,000 does not reflect the current condition of the railroad and the equipment that is there. So that kind of brings us where we are today. One of the things that I think is being overlooked in a lot of this conversation is the simple effect that the train leaving would have on the zoo. The train directly affects the zoo and the amount of people that attend the zoo. If you don't come up with another option, if the train was to leave, if Caden and his family were not able to purchase it, or whatever other options were explored, that is directly going to affect the zoo. Their number one fundraiser they do each year is Wild Nights and Holiday Lights. The train is part of that, and it's a huge part of that. there was a public article that came out that was posted on that Folsom chat group. And there was people posting on there simply the fact that they wouldn't attend that event anymore if they weren't had the option to also ride the train on top of seeing the animals. Because there's less and less places that you can go to ride behind a steam locomotive or even a scale train for that matter in the United States because of all of the qualifications it takes to operate it. The other thing that I wanted to talk on is myself. I have lots of background in this. I come from the Walt Disney Company. I'm not one of the ones that Mr. Gold was speaking to. I've ran and operated trains at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. I work currently for a ranch in Santa Margarita that operates steam locomotives. So my background there, and I would actually confidently tell you that if the city was to replace the train, so if Mr. Gold in the city or somebody else was not able to come to an agreement, the best option would be to purchase a diesel locomotive similar to the one that Mr. Gold currently operates. The reasons for that is it's simply the most cost-effective option that is on the table over steam. Now, I'm saying this as a person that loves steam, and I would love to see that train here for another 30 years. Just like most, I've grown up riding on that. I've operated it for Mr. Gold. I don't want to see it leave. But if it comes down to it, the better option, you're going to have more options as far as training and from the city side of things if it is a diesel locomotive. The cost effectiveness of the diesel versus a steam train is not even comparable. The amount of time, I don't know where the 6 months came up with, but that is not even an accurate number of how long it would take to learn to adequately operate a steam locomotive and maintain it. It's a dying industry, and that's why you don't see it as often. So moving forward, I don't want to see the train leave, and I think there was a few things that were on there that needed a little bit more info given to it. So thank you.
Thank you for coming out, Kyle.
Okay, your last speaker on this item, and then we'll circle back to the caller on the line, see if they're there yet, is James Harville.
Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, council members, Vice Mayor Aquino. I'll keep it real brief. When Park and Rec contacted me to ask if we knew anyone that might be interested in this, I called the Prud'hommes immediately. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said. The city of Folsom does not want to own a train. I can just guarantee you that you really don't want it. But to preserve a steam locomotive, an operational steam locomotive, is a labor of love, and these are the folks that'll do it for you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going to try one more time to the caller on the line who still has their hand up.
Guys.
Hang on. Are you there? Going once? Okay.
All right, we gave it our best shot.
Yep.
Okay, bringing it back to the council. Are there any questions at this point? Direction? Mr. City Attorney, maybe a question for you. I think it's probably safe to say we all want the train to stay in Folsom. Am I correct on that?
Aye.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. But it sounds like if there is a possible buyer on that would be a private transaction between Mr. Gold and the Prud'homme family or whomever. And then the city would just get involved in terms of continuing a land lease or something like that.
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor, the city has a concessionaire agreement with Mr. Gold and his company, and the city will either acknowledge an assignment of the unexpired portion of that current agreement or enter into a new concessionaire agreement with the new operators.
Okay. Okay.
I'm in support of supporting a similar agreement we had with Terry Gold with, basically I want the city to get out of the way and let the free market do its work. It sounds like there's two potential buyers. Let's see how that takes effect. But I think with that, knowing that the city is willing, if we're all willing, or there's a majority willing to continue the lease with a concessionaire. Outside of that, I am not willing on putting resources towards employees. I think we have other bigger employee situations that we need, that the residents have been crying for all year. So I think the city should get out of the way at this point, knowing with good faith that we maybe renegotiate but honor a lease agreement with the tracks that are there.
Any other comments?
One of the comments I made during agenda review was maybe this is a great opportunity for a public-private partnership, and maybe putting it out there for a bid with one of the major businesses in our region that would like to put their name on this particular train or a sponsor for this and be able to, whatever, if the city of Folsom chose to operate this. And again, I'm for either the city purchasing it and operating it or putting a bid out and letting somebody else run it. I'm good with either or as long as the train will stay in Folsom. But it is an opportunity for us to possibly consider a private-public partnership where an organization or a business can sponsor and pay for the cost of what it would take to operate that on a yearly basis. And, we see that very common with baseball, sports. We see that a lot we see that in actually all sports. And it would be an opportunity for the city if we did not find someone to purchase it. And that's just a thought.
Okay. Councilmember Challen-Sherla?
We have potential buyers in front of us, and they are very passionate buyers. And speaking from their heart as a tradition, I think our city staff can entertain. We don't have to be in between, but let the Mr. Gold and the passionate buyers can work off, and they can come back to city for what to do and how to do the next agreement. That's my recommendation.
I agree with Councilmember Challen-Sherla and Rohrbaugh. At this point, I think there's no role for the city here. Let the private market work it out, and then, assuming they can come to some agreement, we appreciate Mr. Gold giving the right of first refusal to a local group so that we can keep the train in Folsom. But once that's done, then we could get involved in terms of some sort of whatever that word is. I can't remember what the thing was. Agreement. Yeah.
And just for clarification, I support it going to somebody buying it and running it. That's fine.
Mr. Mayor, anything you'd like to add?
I was listening while this cup of coffee very slowly brewed itself and occurring in the back room. And I think you guys have nailed it in terms of where we are today. So
All right.
Thank you.
Liz, you're fine with that? Okay. Then I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So item 14.
Item 14.
Just in time.
Your second new business item this evening will be item number 14, fiscal year 24-25, preliminary budget workshop with presentation of departmental budget priorities, review of the city's financial challenges and projected structural deficit, and the city's budget allocations by department, and direction to staff.
Good evening, everyone. Although we've been discussing the city's upcoming fiscal year 24-25 budget in different ways with the City Council for quite some time, tonight is the actual kickoff presentation. A couple of key points before we get into the heart of the presentation. First, I do want to note that I don't have updated revenue projections to share with you tonight because it's just too early. But we're receiving no indication on either the sales tax side of the house or the property tax revenue side of the house that there will be any exciting surprises that would make our future structural deficits diminish significantly or disappear entirely. Also, I've asked our city department heads to lead off tonight by sharing their department's top intended preliminary budget asks for fiscal year 24-25. That process is not meant to be an exercise in futility. And what I mean by that is I'm not trying to get the department heads to come up here and tell you all the things they want and then, I'd turn around and say, gee, we can't have any of those things. We can't afford what we have, and we also need to cut from there. I'm instead trying to show you the degree of needs that are not being met. It's also meant to show that if the council does want to see these types of asks in the preliminary budget, then there has to be a corresponding dollar amount subtraction in other areas, and then subtractions beyond that to ensure a balanced budget. To preface this segment of the presentation, I want to let you know that by and large, you are going to hear a lot of familiar sounding requests from the city's department heads. In some cases, the slides you are going to see are virtually identical to what was presented to you about a year ago. Because we've had little to no capacity to fulfill very reasonable requests other than those that address service needs south of 50. I've asked our department heads to be very candid, and I know they will be. Their remarks are unaudited and unfiltered and unedited by me, and they will all be available for questions throughout this agenda item. After they present, I will provide a brief fiscal overview, which again should be very familiar to you, a preliminary budget development timeline and process overview, and finally ask for your direction on general fund allocation percentages that I should use as my guideposts in developing the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget. So with that, I'd first like to turn things over to our city attorney, Steve Wong, who will present on behalf of his small yet mighty department, and then he will be followed by his fellow department heads.
Thank you, Madam City Manager and Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Stephen Wong, City Attorney. At one point in time, more than 16 years ago, the City Attorney's Office had more than 3 attorneys handling City Council, City Commissions, City staff, litigation, legal support, and all sorts of legal matters for the city. For the last 16 years, the City Attorney's Office has been operating at a reduced staffing level and managed, nonetheless, to deliver exceptional legal services without exception. Since I became city attorney almost 8 years ago, our office has repeatedly cut expenditures until we couldn't cut anymore. We even eliminated money in the budget to attend mandatory continuing legal education conferences. An influx, as you know, of complex litigation cases against the city over the years, and internal investigations, disciplinary actions, and complex development projects have made it very challenging to maintain a workload, demand, and supporting city operations at the same time. Now, we may not need to get back to full staffing, but a third attorney would help right the ship and carry the city's workload forward. And realistically, in addition to a third attorney, we could also use a litigation paralegal as well, since we're doing litigation all the time, all day long, it seems like. So happy to answer any questions you may have. That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. And I'd now like to invite Community Development Director Pam Johns to the podium. Sorry, Krista's next. I apologize.
You want to do my slides for me? Yeah, I got it. Okay, thank you.
City Clerk Krista Fremantle, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the funding request for the City Clerk's Department, especially in light of the many needs and challenges facing the city. Having sat at this dais for over 20 years and having witnessed firsthand the difficult decisions forced on us by the Great Recession, I particularly recognize the delicate balance that the Council must navigate between fiscal realities and our aspirations for premier level services and staff. As you may know, the City Clerk's Department has historically been fairly modest in our budget requests. And this approach really stems from our commitment to streamlined efficiency, our careful stewardship of resources, and really our realistic recognition of fiscal constraints. However, I would argue that one should not interpret our modest request as a lack of need or a lack of importance. Instead, it reflects our creativity in meeting challenges, our thoughtful re-engineering of internal processes, and certainly not least of all, our genuine respect for the needs of all the other departments within the city. But efficiency alone will not suffice without continuously improving our operations, and that includes proactively updating and improving our technology. So while we're mindful of current fiscal constraints, we are looking for ways in which we can improve. And this brings me to our first request, which is for updated software for Political Reform Act filings. We believe that there's room for improvement in our current software, and by updating to a more user-friendly and robust platform, we hope to make the filing easier. And this in turn not only will help our filers meet their legal requirements, but it also helps the public access this really important information. And as indicated on the slide, the increased cost, sorry, my slides are out of order. Thank you. The increased cost is about $2,400. Our second request is also technology related, and this is for a modernization of the municipal code online platform. This proposal is for an upgraded system with the current vendor that we use, who we're very happy with. We've had a relationship with them for about 20 years. But they have a new modern platform that's more visually modern. It's more friendly, user-friendly layout. It'll enable us to post historical legislative information. We could host general plans, specific area plans, ordinances, and resolutions. And all of this is intended to improve transparency and public access to information with a type of self-serve information that users have come to expect. Okay, next slide, thank you. For many years now, we've consistently worked to make do with limited resources, maximizing the impact of every dollar allocated to the department. When I started in the department, there were 5 staff members. As a result of the recession, we downsized to 3, and we've continued to run the department with only 3 staff members since 2010. And this brings me to my next request for your consideration, which is the addition of a 4th staff person. And I want to say this is the first time in 14 years that I have ever asked for an additional position. And as described, this position would help in meeting the increased workload demands, and it really would support our ongoing efforts to proactively and strategically develop the department. Lastly, this budget seeks funding for this year's municipal election. Working with Sacramento County, we believe the cost to be approximately $61,000, and this accounts funding for 2 city council seats and a potential ballot measure. Of course, we won't know for some time whether or not the Citizens Initiative measure qualifies for the ballot, but we want to be prepared with funding in case it does, so that's not a surprise expense for the city. And I just want to wrap up by saying our budget request reflects the department's strong commitment to ongoing strategic improvement. And that being said, our request is not just about meeting 1 or 2 departmental needs, it's intrinsically about upholding the highest standards of professionalism with a very careful eye towards the future. We recognize that the budget issue before the council is essentially a utilitarian question. How to do the most good for the most number of people? There's no easy decisions here, and we certainly respect the council's deliberation and decisions in this regard. And we appreciate your consideration of our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista.
Questions as we go along?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
Krista, I have a question for you. Yep. We have one resident who since July 1st has submitted over 220 Public Record Act requests. How much time do you think on average is your office spending per week processing those? I mean, is that the job, basically? It's the equivalent of one full-time person?
Well, it could be. That work winds up being spread amongst every department that is the subject of all public records requests. So each department bears the staffing burden, some more than others, of producing those records. So it isn't that workload is not felt only within the clerk's department. We are the central hub to process all of those requests and review and release them, and it has created a significant workload.
But once you get, like, if you ask me to give you every email I've had with Rosario, for example, was one of the requests I got. Mm-hmm. I send those to you. Is it your office's job to then see what's supposed to be redacted because it's a personnel issue or something confidential, or is who's doing that portion?
It's really a joint effort. We work with the departments to do an initial review. If they have questions of particular privilege, then we will review that as well. Occasionally, if it's something we're not certain of, we will work with the attorney's office as well. So there's a lot of eyes on those documents to make sure that we're producing everything we have, but not producing anything that's privileged and should not be. And there's a very narrow definition of what's privileged.
Okay.
So it does take some time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions at this point before we move on? Okay. So
one quick one. Krista,
Yes, sir.
you're asking, the election administration, and that is by default, city has to take that expense.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yes.
And but putting that aside, so you're asking for some technology funds to invest
That's right.
to be more efficient for your department and more accurate also. Otherwise,
Well, I'd like to think we're pretty accurate already.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
what the software does is it does modernize, it enables more efficiencies. And really, as we continue with only 3 staff members, we recognize there's a lot of call for staffing. And to be able to continue to meet our legal mandates, additional software does help. You can streamline some of it, you can automate. When I talk about information being self-serve, when you have a more modern platform online through this specialized software, residents can access that information directly, which takes the burden off of staff and helps the public.
Thank you. I'm all for, me being a technology guy, technology definitely helps every department to be, minimizing our efforts and giving the leverage to the staff. And besides the technology, and you're asking for 1 staff member, administrative staff member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now, Community Development Director Pam Johns.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Pam Johns, Community Development Director. Our lean staff of 28 in community development represent less than 50% of the staff that we had pre-recession 16 years ago. That's a theme you've heard consistently. Like every department in Folsom, we've been doing more with less, maximizing efficiencies where we can, and in our case, contracting supplemental staff to meet service demands as revenues allow. For this fiscal year budget, we've identified 5 significant priorities that require additional funding to meet growing service demands and customer needs in community development. These include 3 technology requests that are supported by our IT department, 1 full-time permanent staffing request, and 1 part-time temporary staffing request with a total annual budget cost of about $260,000. 1 request is a carryover from the last budget, and the other 4 reflect new technology needs and optimization, as well as address peak pressure points that we're currently experiencing in staffing. The first item is that our current Project Docs plan check system will reach the end of its service life in 2025. We received that notice letter. Project Docs currently has an annual cost of $16,000, but will no longer be supported, which is problematic for reliability. The only option to retain a supported program is to upgrade to a significantly more expensive version of Project Docs with an annual cost of $90,000. Because of that cost increase, staff researched and found a suitable alternative called Bluebeam with a one-time installation and annual cost of around $23,000. That's net for the annual. Bluebeam provides a simpler process for public interface and fully integrates with ComDev permit system. This is a significant issue in our department that would allow essentially 1 login. Right now, ComDev and Project Docs require 2 logins, and we get complaints about it, and I'm sure you've heard. So this would solve that problem for less money in the long run. The second priority is a new permanent full-time arborist position. Given ongoing increased workload for the city's only arborist, our urban forester, Amy Nunez, Community Development's requesting a new second full-time arborist position to help with review of all landscape plans, inspection, tree permits, and implementation of tree policies and programs with support to all other departments. The estimated annual cost is about $140,000 with salary and benefits. And that would, right now, we spend about $45,000 to $50,000 on a part-time contract that helps exclusively with the tree permits. That's too narrow, it's not enough. And for perspective, last year Amy did 736 plan reviews, 398 inspections, 340 tree work and removal permits, reviewed capital projects and special projects, did 74 code enforcement cases, managed the tree foundation program, and advanced landmark tree programs, and worked with utilities on veg management. It's simply unsustainable. It's time for the city to have a second arborist. The third item is another technology request to improve customer service and permitting experiences. Right now, we have our ComDev system on an on-premise server, and we're requesting that we move to a cloud-based system. And there is an expense associated with that in the short term, but that upgrade improves a lot of remote access to our customers that would improve efficiencies and transparencies. The one-time cost of $53,000 plus an annual net cost of $71,000 would over time be offset by reducing IT staff support time because they don't have to maintain an on-premise server. It eliminates the need to purchase that additional server in the future because we're reaching capacity. And then there's a cost savings with the remote connections for contract plan check and inspection services. The fourth priority is a records clerk. So piggybacking what Krista identified, we have ongoing increased public record requests and a backlog. When we converted during the pandemic to an electronic system, starting in 2020, we have electronic plans and permits. Prior to that time, we do not. And so these record requests are very problematic for our department. We have 3 off-site storage facilities, and we haven't been able to keep up with scanning of our records. So what we're requesting is someone about 24 hours a week at a cost of about $25 an hour, so $25,000 one-time cost, to get our head above water. In terms of these record requests, scanning final and as-built plans, and helping us organize our electronic records and hard copy records that predate our 2020 system. And the final request is for agency counter software. This is one we talked to you about in the last fiscal year budget. This is a software system that would integrate seamlessly with our ComDev system, and it's outward facing. It would give the public access in real time to permit and project data that we allow the public to see, and it's a mapping service. So someone could go in and say, I want to know when there's a new building permit or accessory dwelling unit within the historic district. I get a notification, and I can access and look at where it's out in the process and when it reaches certain milestones in the process. It's a great system. It has good reviews. It's used widely. Has a one-time installation cost that actually came down. If we do the web-based system, it brings down our one-time cost to $25,000 with an annual net cost of $40,000, which assumes an ongoing contract. So I know, like everyone else, that I'm asking for a lot. It's not easy to do this, knowing we don't have much discretionary funds, and so I don't have high expectations, and my team is managing our expectations. However, in terms of these improved customer experiences, we believe that this would give us the most bang for our buck in meeting current demands and providing enhanced services to our customers. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions from the council at this point? Okay, I'd like to invite Fire Chief Ken Casano to come down.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Ken Casano, your fire chief. So this is a list of the fire department's top 8 proposed level of service requests this year. I'll detail each of them in the subsequent slides, and I will be extremely brief. So if you have questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer those. Most of these you've heard in the past fiscal years. So our first one is the training division chief position. It's one that the fire department had before the economic downturn in 2008. Training division chief duties include administrative and supervisory work, plus researching, planning, developing, and coordinating consistent training to all the members of the fire department. This position ensures compliance with mandated state and federal guidelines, and then also a special project that they would be working on and in charge of would be the Explorer program for the local high school students that's currently running in collaboration with El Dorado Hills Fire District. The next ask is, well, 2 of them, 9 firefighters and 6 firefighters. They're both separated. One, the 9 firefighters positioned specifically to staff Engine 35 at Station 35 would serve 2 crucial purposes. 1, alleviate call stacking in the busiest district in Folsom, while simultaneously decreasing the wear and tear on our most expensive piece of equipment in the city, the Tiller Truck 35. And most importantly, number 2, to provide fire suppression capabilities within the historic district. The 6 firefighters would be to staff Medic 34, eventually at Station 34, and to provide additional ambulance transportation capabilities to the Folsom community. Medic units throughout the Sacramento County are routinely held at hospitals, emergency rooms known as wall time, for extended periods resulting in longer transport delays. The next one is the Battalion Chief Administration. This involves administrative and supervisory work that would include direct support to the training, EMS, and operations divisions. This position is primarily for succession planning. In the administrative roles of the division chief and supplement the oversight of personnel, 4 out of the current 6 chief officers will retire within the next couple of years. So succession planning is extremely important. Two Type 1 engine companies, or engines, I'm sorry. The Type 1 fire engine cost also includes radios, ladders, hoses, and hand tools. It's fully outfitted. Receiving 2 new engines will replace engine 37 and add 35, engine 35. This also rotates a current in-service engine into our reserve fleet that can be used to serve the city for several more years. Fire prevention officer. This position completes state-mandated inspections, annual life safety inspections, and risk reduction for the community. This position was one that we did not fill when we promoted an employee to a deputy fire marshal. Instead, we hired a fire mechanic because at that time that was the most critical priority that we had. Due to continued new construction, increased mandated inspections, life safety inspections, the prevention division optimally requires 2 prevention officers. Cardiac monitors, we're asking to get 4 of them. It's a piece of equipment that's required for our advanced life support. Every apparatus in the city of Folsom is ALS. The department purchased 11 of the current monitors that we use in 2016. They are routinely being sent away to be repaired, refurbished. If we add station engine 34, if we add engine 35, if we add medic 34, we'll require the remaining 3 monitors to be in service, and the proposed level of service request is just to have redundancy, so if they need to be repaired, we have some. And finally, we have Fire Station 33. I know we are currently building Fire Station 34. However, building is not slowing down out in the Folsom Plan area. There is, in the future, we have another station out there, 33. I just don't want to fall behind. This is to request to initiate the preliminary architectural design phase and plan development for Fire Station 33. This would carry us for approximately the next 2 years, and in fiscal year 25-26 would be final design phases and plan submittal so that we could finally start construction 26-27. And with that, these are the additional PLSs that we will be submitting, but I only did the top 8.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from the council at this point?
So, Chief, when you go back to you don't have to, but just thinking back to your first slide, were those in priority order, meaning a training chief?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then to Fire Station 33 architectural design, do we reuse plans? Meaning, can you take the plans that we did for Station 34 and build the exact same station on the 33 land?
Yes and no. I mean, you can use similar plans, but again, each parcel site is specific, and it still has to be, the architect still has to do his stuff, engineers still have to do their stuff. But we try to use the same type design, pending we get the same architect that we had.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, the 6 firefighters for 34 that you're talking about for medical service.
Correct.
Would that increase our capacity in a way that would impact the recovery of ambulance fees? Would the ambulance fees go up by having additional manpower to operate, or are you trying to just
I would
provide
anticipate. I
coverage?
would anticipate that the revenues would go up. I mean, we do routinely have outside mutual aid partners, El Dorado Hills, Sac Metro come in for ambulance services. We do not get the ambulance services fees for when they come in to our city.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if I could, thank you, Chief, and if I could invite Human Resources Director Allison Garcia to come up.
That's a hard ask to follow. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Allison Garcia, your Human Resources Director. The HR department will be coming to you this year with a request for an additional human resources technician. The total first-year cost for salary and benefits is about $140,000. The department is currently budgeted for 1 director, 2 analysts, 2 technicians, and 1 admin assistant. This request aims to restore our staffing levels to a similar state as they were before the 2008 recession. While the list of main functions provide a brief overview of the general functions of the department, it's important to recognize that each of these areas require significant investment of time, research, and energy to effectively execute. Despite facing a decrease in citywide staffing post-recession and a slowdown in hiring during the pandemic, we have been steadily adding budgeted positions citywide with only minor adjustments to the HR department during the same period. To provide context, Folsom's ratio is currently 1 HR staff to 82 citywide staff. Davis is about a 1 to 75 ratio. City of Sacramento is a 1 to 61 ratio. Rockland is 1 to 49, and Roseville is a 1 to 71. Navigating California's employee-friendly landscape presents a yearly challenge as we grapple with new and revised labor laws. Additionally, our HR department serves all employees in all departments. Despite the city's reform in retiree medical insurance for new employees, we are currently experiencing an upward trend in the workforce eligible for retiree medical insurance. HR manages the benefits of hundreds of retired and active employees. The rise in staffing levels, coupled with a growing number of retirees, has only served to further escalate the ratio of HR staff to citywide and retired employees. With the addition of a technician, we can directly support the objectives outlined in the council's strategic plan, specifically Goal D, organizational effectiveness. This addition will enable us to aid departments in succession planning, develop employee training initiatives, and cultivate a DEI program. As stewards of the workforce and guardians of organizational compliance, we must equip our HR department with the resources necessary to meet the demands of our dynamic environment and to continue to uphold the highest standards of employee support and organizational excellence. I appreciate your consideration for the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Are there any questions at this point?
So I've had several people reach out to me about a DEI program for the city of Folsom, and I've had conversations in the past. Are you saying that there's a plan to look into that?
There is, yep, as part
Okay.
of the strategic plan.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
What? I'm sorry, you probably said it and it slid past me. What are you trying to communicate with this graph on the lower right? The number of employees in each of those fiscal years, and what's the green bar?
So the green bar is the ratio of employees, HR employees to citywide staff. And so as the employee numbers are increasing with the blue portions of the chart, the ratio is increasing. It looks like it's decreasing, but we have a higher ratio of employees to HR staff.
Okay, I understand graphically what you're trying to show. I don't understand how 1.16, 1.22, 1.30 are a ratio.
So for the way
I'm sorry, if your staff is 5 for 452 employees in fiscal year 1920, that's 1 to 100.
Right.
So it would be more true to say that the ratio is 1 to. Okay, I guess I talked myself into understanding it. It's an odd way to present it. That's all. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I'd like to invite library.
Alison, one quick one. Each department has a HR coordinator to work with your department?
No, so our HR team handles all departments, and so we have a benefits technician, so she's solely dedicated to managing the benefits. We have another HR tech that's solely dedicated to our recruitments. We have another technician that handles all of our leaves of absence, workers' comp, and then we have an analyst that's helping to with employee investigations and any of the high-level issues that we have, also helping with labor relations.
Got it. Thank you.
And so we help with all issues that come up in the city.
All issues to come up with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And Library Director Tom Gruneisen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Tom Gruneisen, your Library Director. The first two items I have for you tonight are of particular urgency because they're vital systems that are actively failing. The first is our lighting system. One of the circuits permanently went out earlier this year, which means that we no longer have control of those lightings. Two other circuits are in the process of failing, which suggests that the system as a whole is getting ready to go out. When that happens, we'll have no way to turn lights on or off inside the library. Our HVAC control system is in a similar situation. It no longer controls all the zones inside our library. That means that during the summer, parts get uncomfortably hot. During the winter, some parts get uncomfortably cold. Overall, it has a harder time adjusting temperature across the library. And puts more strain on the systems that we do have, but more on that later. This is where we want to go. As many of you know, that the library used to be open 6 days before the pandemic. This is something that's asked for by our community members and which we are eager to respond to. To make that happen, though, we need to have our on-call budget restored to something closer to what it was before the pandemic. The gap there is around $54,000. We don't think we need an entire restoration, but we need some to make that 6 day possible. My next two slides are for overdue upgrades. The most visible is the wallpaper inside our main entrance. It's been 16 years, it's stained, it's peeling, it's not great. Also very visible, we have our two main sets of sliding doors. These are doors that malfunction when it gets wet, as it does during the winter. They malfunction when it gets hot, as it does during the summer. In both cases, we need to take them offline, which is inconvenient. When they are operating, they also leave a little more than a 1/4-inch gap along their edges, which allows pests and then water into the library. Then I have a list of things that are maybe less urgent, but will need your response. Our restroom sensors continue to fail. That means that if you go to the public library and you go to use the restroom, some of our sinks or toilets are either running continuously or not at all. That is gross. Also, as California moves away from fluorescent lighting, eventually we're going to need to convert to LED. Whether we do that in phases or all at once, the sooner we do it, the sooner we'll have cost savings in terms of increasingly expensive ballasts and lights and lower utilities. I have a few big ticket items coming up that I do not have a mechanism to save for, but we'll want to start saving for. One is that we know that there's damage to our exterior stucco. We'd like to assess the extent of that damage and then come up with a repair plan. Our HVAC units, if you visited us during the library, you know that it gets warm in there. That's because our units are frequently out of service. Our facilities team tells me I have at least one more summer inside our units, but beyond that, it gets hazy. Also with our roof, we've had a few minor leaks, but we're getting to the point where in the next few years we will need to replace our roof. That's not something we're going to want to sit on. Libraries and roof leaks get catastrophically bad very, very quickly when you think of our materials. Lastly, it would be prudent to start budgeting for the unexpected. A year ago, I did not know that my timer system was going to need to be replaced. I don't know what I'll have for you next year, but it would be good to start putting some money aside. Thank you.
Tom, any questions?
I have a question. When the doors fail, are you able to open and close them manually?
We have to close them manually. In the case of the water, we have beautiful stained concrete as you come in, which immediately becomes a slip and slide. So we need to close that and then send people through our double doors, which are manual. The problem is that it's not as accessible, especially if you're in a wheelchair.
So you redirect people to another
Yes, and then
entrance.
have to help open the doors if they are in a wheelchair.
So on that same thread, are you able to lock them to keep things safe if they fail overnight or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we close them. It happens enough that we have signage that we bring out and do that.
How old is that building now? Like 18 years, something like that?
Going on 17.
17, yeah. So speaking from experience, air conditioning equipment, 15 to 20 years is useful life. So you're right in the window where they could fail at any moment, or parts of them are failing, and as you've experienced.
Encouraging.
Well, no, I'm just.
Tom, in that very last picture, is that a stain on old carpet or new carpet?
That is old carpet from last year because our new carpet is excellent and it hides that kind of a stain.
Okay.
This is a water leak from the damaged stucco outside our window. When it rains, that water seeps down the walls and then goes into the carpeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there cracks, or is it a flashing problem?
It appears to be cracks. Our facilities department is very good at sealing those cracks, but at this point, it's whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I'd like to invite our Chief Financial Officer, Stacy Tamani, who heads up the Office of Management and Budget, to speak now.
Thank you. Good evening. I just have one slide for you here. My focus this year is on the needs mostly of our Information Systems Division. The first request is for an additional IS technician position. You've already heard of a lot of technology requests coming in from various departments. We've had a lot over the last few years, and our staff has not increased. We've had 3 staff people covering all of the technology needs for the past decade. Another person would also help us to be more proactive in responding to needs. Right now, they have to be fairly reactive, just going to the most essential problems first, and then things that are not as an emergency get kind of pushed back. And that's just the situation that we're in right now. The total cost of that position would be $126,000 for salary and benefits. The second one is a piece of equipment, a large piece of equipment. This is our storage array for all of our network storage. It is getting to its end of life, and so it is something that has to be replaced. All the city's data and our virtual environment are on this, and it's $70,000 to do that. That's not an annual cost, but it's something that hasn't been saved for. The third request is to go ahead and renew our contract with Microsoft Office. It's something that we really have to do. We use this for quite a lot of applications. It's our whole email system, our scanning, our printing, everything goes through Microsoft, all of our sign-in and security. And Microsoft is renewing that. The quote is for a $35,000 increase. That'd be the cost for all of the licenses across the city to be increased. And then we're also asking on top of that for an additional $5,000 to be added to that contract for an enhanced security suite within Microsoft for a total of $40,000.
That would be an ongoing expense.
That's an ongoing expense. For the finance department, I'm requesting funding of about $25,000 for yet another technology need. This is an accounting software. Every year, the Government Accounting Standards Board, that's GASB, puts out new pronouncements. Those are accounting requirements that we have to put into place. This new one was called GASB 96, and it was for the accounting and financial reporting. It's a very long title, but essentially it's for reporting for software. And so we have to account for this, track it, report it in our financial reports all differently than we've had to do before. And this was implemented in our last financial report. It's actually in the one that you received tonight. But this is a huge burden on staff, especially as software continues to be what we're moving towards. There are many companies that have developed a software to assist governments with implementing this requirement. And the estimated cost is about $25,000, and that would be a recurring cost to have that software. So all of these requests relate to your Goal B Strategy 9, which is initiating technology solutions to streamline organization and improve efficiency. And I think it is clear that if we're going to be implementing all the new software, we also need likely a position in order to continue to do this, and definitely the storage and the equipment to be able to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'd like to invite Kelly Gonzalez, our Parks and Recreation Director, to the podium.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. I'm Kelly Gonzalez, your Parks and Recreation Director. The items that I'm bringing forward to you tonight is related to our strategic plan, and we had a number of items. And so this year I'm focusing on our infrastructure and public safety. In the Parks and Recreation Department, we have 48 developed parks, and we're nearing 30 park structures that are near the end of their life cycle. Less than 3% of our CIP budget includes park renovations. If you look at performance standards through the National Parks and Recreation and looking at other cities, typically 40 to 50% of the CIP budget is allocated to park renovations. Here at the city, we have deferred maintenance for over a decade. Our department's first ask is looking at Kids Play Park. It's not something that's been a hot topic within our community. We've removed a number of structures, blocked off structures, and now we're at the point we need some renovation. So for the first year, we are looking for $450,000 for a total cost of $1.1 million. Our next ask, which I know this has come before the City Council before, is looking at our park renovation master plan. We currently have identified 12 parks that have assets that are in poor or very poor condition. We are asking for $880,000 to begin the replacement of these assets at Limby and Lions Park. We are known here in the city of Folsom for our world-class trails. Visitors come from around the region to walk, bike, and run in our community. Currently, we've identified over 100 trail lift needs and estimated $2.5 million in repairs that are desperately needed. Every year that we postpone, the maintenance gets higher and higher. At this point, we've talked about developing a trail maintenance management program, but we don't have ongoing funding, so it's very difficult to look long-term. Again, we've come to the City Council before. Last year, we had a request for the landscape maintenance contracting funding. This year, we are asking again for $853,000. We have doubled the amount of acres that we maintained with increased costs, and we've already lowered our standard here at the City of Folsom. In the last 10 years, we intentionally replaced full-time staff with contracted services based on the increased costs. Regionally, other departments are looking back at hiring more staff because it's more cost-effective. If not funded, our streetscapes, parks, and trails will continue to fall and decrease our level of standards. Our concern is maintaining our level of sport fields to the standards that our user groups expect. The next item, each year we've had limbs that have fallen, and our goal is to minimize any future liability. The department is requesting $160,000 in hazard tree mitigation. We have 20 parks that currently have over 2,000 irrigation controllers that are original. Best practice is making sure that we have smart controllers so that if there is a water main line break, that automatically is shut down and that staff are notified. Currently, we have an old system, and staff currently go out and hand manipulate the irrigation system. And also to know, anytime we have repairs, those parts are no longer available. As outlined in the Folsom Finance Specific Plan, we are requesting $564,000 in salaries and benefits. Currently, our park planner that manages close to $3 million in CIP, he's one person and is definitely needing support. In addition, we have continued to increase our open space, so we're looking for some support with our maintenance workers, as well as a recreation coordinator too, as we continue to show the increase in demand both in our participation and our programs. Currently, within the Parks and Recreation Department, we oversee 25 citywide owned facilities and community centers with approximately 4 staff to respond to the preventative maintenance and also to manage all the projects and needs of each of the departments. Right now, we continue to respond to emergency repairs, and right now we do see that the work can be cheaper if it is in-house. My goal is to work on developing a facility renovation plan for all of our city-owned facilities. Right now, what I come before you are some of the higher needs that we have in our department. Right now, we have needs at the community center. This center was original in 1991. Again, we have a one-time request for the HVAC system estimated at $1.5 million. We have kitchen equipment that is original to the build and is no longer in use or is no longer in operation. We also have tables and chairs that are very heavy that are original to 1991 that need to be replaced. Other facility renovations that we want to begin to work on our CIP for facility repairs. Currently, we're asking for $500,000 to start, but we wanted you to see some of the high priorities. Here at City Hall, we're estimating $1.4 million, and that is related to a number of items that are needed, including interior and exterior painting, carpet, entering doors and hardware, concrete, tile, walkway repairs, and major improvements. The other needs, a lot of the time this summer, Tom, Chad, and his staff were spending a lot of nights repairing equipment. They're ending their life cycle here at the Aquatic Center. We want to make sure that we never have to close our facility. The replacement of these items can take up to 3 to 6 months, so we want to make sure that we're saving and preparing, because in the next 1 to 3 years, those will need to be replaced at $655,000. Also, at the sports complex, our swamp coolers are original to the build of that facility, and we are looking for some additional work for our HVAC systems there for $310,000. My last request that I bring forth to you today is regarding our synthetic turf fields. We currently are requesting $2.6 million to repair 2 turf fields for soccer fields and volleyball fields at Kemp Park. We are at the end of our life cycle, and safety issues will begin to continue to pop up. If not replaced, this will have an impact on our user groups and loss of potential revenue.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly?
I have one. Kelly, with respect to Kids Play Park, where right now you're asking for just about $500,000, are you suggesting that the play equipment could be replaced in 2 phases, or you're just funding it over a couple of years?
I think both. Ideally, any park renovation, a minimum of 2 years. So for the first year, approximately $450,000.
But could we replace some of that equipment then now if we were to fund that, or we're just setting aside money and you would do it all at the same time 2 years from now, for example?
It depends on which strategy. There's been some requests to look at, see if we can get support and do this with community engagement and do some work in-house, but right now we're looking for that. It's going to take us some time, so I'm working with a consultant to start the project. It's $450,000.
Okay, thank you.
So for all of our facilities, do the utility bills for all of the facilities get paid out of the parks budget? The general budget of the Parks
You know
Department?
what, I have to go and look.
Okay.
I know I've been working, and there's been a lot of discussion with Stacy on looking on how we budget our facilities and
Yeah, who holds the budget for utilities? I guess Stacy, that's a better person
For
to ask.
parks, it is in the parks budget.
So for this building,
For this building, it's in the facilities budget,
which is parks.
which is in the general fund, but not, well, yes, in parks as a separate division.
So the utility bills get paid out of multiple parts of the general fund?
Yes.
Okay. Do we pay a water bill to the Water Enterprise Fund for the water that's used in the parks, or do we not?
Yes, we do.
We do, okay. So there is a bill for water that gets handed from one department to the other?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Kelly, just for clarification, L&L and general fund, and you have shown some of the trails up and down. Can you
Right.
help L&L covering and general fund?
Right, today we're just talking about general fund. We do have impact fees, we have L&L, we have CFDs, but today we're just talking about general fund needs.
Yeah, the no trails is being covered by the L&L, and even though the trails are going through their neighborhoods?
There are some trails that are funded through L&Ls.
Okay, that's what my question is. Because when you're describing, some parts of town is bad, some parts of town is good
Right.
in terms of trails. Is that a
And
fair
we typically
statement?
have funding through our L&L for trails with our general fund. Trails that are supported by general fund, there's a limited amount of funding for maintenance and management.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Kelly. I'd like to invite Commander Brian Lockhart to present on behalf of Chief Hillman, who's on vacation for the police department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Brian Lockhart with the police department. As Elaine said earlier, you're going to see a lot of familiar slides up here. We need more staffing. As our call load increases, everyone's workload increases, we need staffing to be able to provide the level of service that we're all accustomed to. So first, with our sworn staffing, I'm going to group these first three together. We're asking for 7 officers, 2 corporals, and 1 sergeant. First, the 7 police officers, which is really going to be 4 police officers, a corporal, and a sergeant, which is going to be for our homeless outreach team. We heard from the community that the issues around homelessness are a problem. Our calls for service have gone up about 3 times from 22 to 23, and our point-in-time count, which was just done a couple weeks ago, the preliminary numbers are showing it's up about 6 times from what it was 2 years ago. The 4 officers, a corporal, and a sergeant will be able to provide focused efforts towards the issues around homelessness, and it will be able to be a 7-day-a-week coverage, which is very important to what we need. Also, we're asking for 3 more officers and another corporal to be able to provide 24/7 coverage for south of 50. Those 3, in addition to the 2 that have been given the last few years, would give us the ability to staff that full-time. So again, the corporals, I've covered that, and the for the sergeant as well. I know there's going to be questions at the end, so I'll be ready for them. Our priority number 4 is to actually purchase a building across the street. Last year, we were given some funds to be able to put our neighborhood services over at 11 Natoma Street. An opportunity presented itself to purchase the building next door. It's about 8,000 square feet, where we'd like to be able to put our investigations division as along with our neighborhood services. Excuse me. That is going to be about $2.5 million. The other $2.5 million will be to renovate the police department, specifically our communications center, to be able to grow that to the needs that they have in there. So we've talked a lot about the PRAs. Our records division is who handles a lot of the PRAs that we have. As again, Pam and Krista said, since July, we've had 1,200 PRAs to the city. 812 of those were to the police department, which were handled by our records division. Their staffing has been the same for a long time, and they're in desperate need of another person. Fleet cars are really expensive. They're about $100,000 a piece. They're really, really expensive, and funny enough, they're really hard to get to. We have 10 vehicles that are outside of 75,000 miles, and by the time the budget is done, there'll probably be even more than that. So we're asking for, in addition to our, typically we get 500,000, we're asking for an additional 430,000 to replace the vehicles in the fleet. 7th priority, we're looking for 2 dispatchers. Again, our staffing has been pretty much the same. We were given a dispatcher recently. We'd like to have 2 more dispatchers in order to provide, right now our minimum staffing is 2 at any given time. With 2 additional dispatchers, we'd be able to bring that to 3. Also, a dispatch supervisor. The supervisor will be able to have supervision over the dispatch center 24/7. And lastly, an inventory clerk. Currently, we have a lieutenant who manages our fleet, which is very, very time consuming. He spends about 50% of his time on the fleet. We have about 85 vehicles. We're asking for staffing for a clerk to be able to handle all of that so he can focus on other duties. All right, I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Commander. Any questions for PD?
I have one. You happened to mention the point-in-time count. Is that comparison you said where it looks like it's 6 times more? We've had some point-in-time counts that everybody has agreed were radical undercounts. Is what you're seeing coming in something that's more representative of what we know is the number?
Yeah, much more consistent.
Okay, so it may not actually be a giant increase, but a more accurate number?
Yes.
Okay, very
And
good,
it's,
thank you.
we're thinking it's about 114, 118, something around there.
That's what the point in time is going to say?
That's the
Really?
preliminary
Okay,
count.
so that is
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
along the lines of what we've assumed
Yep.
many times. Yeah, okay, very good, thank you.
Commander Lockhart, so the homeless outreach team, is that in addition to the community crime suppression unit, or that would replace that?
That would replace that. So they've focused their efforts on currently the idea we've rebranded them as our POP team, problem-oriented policing, and they're focusing currently on organized retail theft, which is up 400% from last year, and they're doing an incredible job. Last month, I think they made 23 to 25 arrests for organized retail theft. So it would be in addition to them.
Okay, a minute ago you said replace, so in addition to.
Yeah, it's in addition. So we'd have a POP team and a homeless outreach team.
Okay. And then of the 81 sworn officers we have now, how many of those positions are vacant?
I believe the current number is 2.
Okay.
But that doesn't account for some long-term injuries, some light duty things. We also have 2 people in an academy and 2 people just graduated an academy that are in a long-term training. So it's about a 4-month training program to get them to be on their own.
Okay.
So we have 2 true vacancies, but we really have about 10 right now that aren't in a uniform patrolling the street.
Right, okay. And then might be more of a question for the city attorney, but with the development happening south of 50, we have a public facilities financing plan that calls for a police substation. My most recent conversation with Chief Hillman, he talked about wanting to have, I think there's going to be some dedicated space in Fire Station 34 where officers could go write reports or something similar to what they do in Palladio. But development impact fees are being paid for that purpose, right? For this, a substation. So does it have to be a substation, or can it go to just helping the police department achieve its goals, and part of that being the service to south of 50? So for example, long story short, could we use those development impact fees that are generated by south of 50 development to pay for example, a building across the street from our current police department? Sorry,
thank you.
it's a very long-winded way of asking the
I was
question.
going to address the South of 50 situation, but thank you. Good question, Madam Vice Mayor. The answer is no. The development impact fees are locked to the purpose for which the fees are assessed. So if the purpose is stated for South of 50, it cannot be reallocated elsewhere. It cannot be reallocated elsewhere. It has to be used for the purpose for which it's assessed for.
And could I ask Ms. Tamani to add to that?
If it is due to the impacts of south of 50, then you could use it in a different location as long as it's due to the impacts of south of 50.
So the
you'd have to
city
be able
increases
to
in size by 25%, that's a plain impact and would be justification for expanding the police department's facilities?
if you were expanding something that was going to be used because of that impact. So let's just say you needed, I don't know, if you're using something that's just going to be north of 50 and you're expanding the police department and it's going to serve something north of 50, then that area of expansion wouldn't qualify.
So in the instance where you're talking about increasing the staffing of dispatchers and creating a desk and technology and all the necessary space for that person, there's no, in 2024, there's no need for them to be in any particular geographic location, but that is definitely a result of additional call volume because of south of 50, right?
And generally,
Would that be an adequate justification?
and you'd maybe have to take a percentage and say, 10% of this is based on calls that we're receiving from south of 50, so 10% of the cost of the expansion of the dispatch center could be paid from impact fees because it's due to that impact.
Would you concur,
Okay,
Mr.
I think
City
we can
Attorney?
debate that one a little bit. But
Well, there's no debate. So there's a difference between facility impact fees and service-related impacts, right? So we're talking about service-related impact, I get that. But if it's a facility impact fee, an impact fee designated to pay for a building south of 50, that is where the building is going to go.
Okay, so the police services, though, we'd have to distinguish between what would need to be geographically within south of 50. This was the debatable part, okay? If you are talking about expanding the facilities that the police department has, some of them have extreme value being located actually within that part of the community. Some of
It's
them,
not just
there's
that.
no connection between their geographic location and the service they're providing.
I
That's
get
why
it.
I was saying
Right.
that you could
I'm
make
not-
an argument that
there's no debate about that. That is reasonable. I get that.
yeah,
What is concrete is what's being planned. So the PFFP is designed to fund facilities south of 50 facilities. So if there's a fire station planned for south of 50, you cannot use the money assessed for that fire station north of 50. For example, it's planned for south of 50. So if there's a facility planned for south of 50, that impact fee has to be used to pay for that facility south of 50.
Are we talking about a large amount of money or a small amount of money? Because if police substation, there are some in the world that are nothing more than a desk in a room. What are we talking
In
about here?
2013 dollars, the plan is about $5 million.
Yeah, I should have mentioned earlier that a couple of years ago, the council approved funding to explore what it would cost to renovate the police department, and those estimates came back a little
Dramatically higher than $5 million.
Yeah, north of 30 million, and frankly, it's going to be way more than that once it comes time.
How much did we spend on that, that plan, do you know? It was over a few $100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was around 250 or so. if I'm
So
not
I just want to
mistaken.
clarify, in December, when we were looking at impact fees and everything, the specific ones we were looking at, when asked to clarify, it was for the impact for the whole of Folsom. And there was some funding in there, and that's where I think some of this conversation started, for a police station or, I was looking at officers, but a police substation and whatever, that wasn't specific to south of 50. So there's impact fees for south of 50, but there's also impact fees with all the development we see north of 50 that are dedicated towards the police department. So there's money in both, in different places. So it's not just one place, to clarify what came up in December. So we don't have full staffing south of 50 right now, is that correct?
No, we're staffing it sometimes on overtime. It's just we're not mandatory overtime. If we have full staffing, there's people out there. If there's not, there's not.
And there's is it about 6,000 people? So I think that's what came up a couple months ago.
I think it's about 7,500 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, close to that. We've got about 2,800 occupied homes, and it depends on what ratio you use, but anywhere between 2.6 and 2.8.
And our call volume is up in that B5 area south of 50 from 1,700-ish in 22 to 2,300-ish in 23.
Okay. And then industry standard is about 1.1 per 1,000 officers. So if you're looking at 6,000 people down there, then definitely staffing 5,000 is what they expect, and expect a city to provide. Because again, this is the number one thing that we're responsible for, is the safety of our citizens. So I think that's all the questions I have at the moment.
Can I get clarification? We had a conversation last year on the budget, and there were police officers assigned to south of 50. I remember asking Chief Hillman in one of the meetings about it, because the conversations out in the public is, no, we don't have police officers assigned to the south of 50, but Chief confirmed we do. So the question is, do we or do we not have police officers assigned to the Folsom Plan area?
The answer is sometimes. So,
Okay, I'm going to restate the question because I think I have a sense of where we're going. We have repeatedly left it ambiguous whether or not, if you make a call to the Folsom PD from south of 50, if officers will appear.
yeah, of course they're going to appear.
Thank you. I think that's the way to answer this question.
Yeah, the way we prioritize, so we have 5 beats. We prioritize where we place our officers in terms of call volume for each beat. Now, the call volume is not as high in beat 5, so if we have only 4 officers at 2 a.m., we're going to put 4 officers in the 4 busiest beats. So if someone calls 911, absolutely the police are coming. We just don't have someone that's specifically assigned to beat 5 all the time.
Thank you for that clarity.
Any other questions at this point?
Your last explanation helps everybody. I hope people are watching it. It is it's a rotation for across the entire city of Folsom. It
Yeah,
is
and I
not
know
just consistently talking south of 50.
Well, it's a prioritization.
Yeah.
We want to make clear that we're not hiring officers that, they are south of 50 officers. There are, the entire police department available officers are dispatched according to highest priority need throughout the city, and that would include south of 50. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think Sarah has a thing arranged with some of the residents out there that if they're concerned, they can show up to that, and we can explain. That was a great way to put it, though.
That's right.
Is our minimum staffing 4 officers and 1 sergeant?
Yes.
So at any one time?
Well, let me clarify a little bit. At certain times of the day, in the middle of the night, yes, it's 4. During our peak times in like we call swing shift hours, it's 7.
Right, because but your minimum before you would mandate overtime is 4 officers, and is that correct? Is that how that works?
In the middle of the night, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at any one time, we have 4 officers on a
There's
Folsom
never,
that has 5 beats.
In our city, there's never less than 4 officers and a
So
supervisor.
if 2 officers go out on call, that leaves 2 officers or 3, depending on what's staffed at the moment, to manage the rest of Folsom.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Commander Lockhart?
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to invite our Public Works Director, Mark Rackavan, to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Mark Rackavan, your Public Works Director. So you're going to see 3 overarching themes in the Public Works Department's priorities. First, you're going to see planning for our future needs, which would be revenue, equipment, and staffing, complying with the state's fleet electrification mandate, and you're going to get both barrels of that in a presentation at your next council meeting. And then addressing our current deficiencies, both in terms of our equipment and our facilities and our staff. Our first priority that you see here is a stormwater fee rate study, which is what it says, that we believe it's time. We're the only city in Sacramento County that does not have a stormwater fee. We think that initiating the study now will not only give us a potential revenue source to address our growing stormwater infrastructure issues, which are failing pipes, which can then lead to failing roads, erosion, and of course water quality. Because we don't have a stormwater fee, we utilize road maintenance fees to cover those stormwater deficiencies, which then draws funding away from our road maintenance, of course. We recently saw a study that showed that the city of Folsom is investing half the dollars per road mile of any other jurisdiction in this county. We have historically had the best pavement conditions overall in Sacramento County. That is no longer the case as of this year. We've now dropped into second behind the city of Elk Grove. And following the projections in that same report, we will drop behind Rancho Cordova within the next 2 to 3 years. And we are well on our way to having the worst pavement condition in the city of Folsom within the next 15 to 20 years if we don't address this funding shortfall on road maintenance. So again, a stormwater fee not only will provide a revenue source for stormwater maintenance deficiencies, but it will free up more money for us to then address our road maintenance issues. Second priority is the new corporation yard site. Now, this is taking on urgency this year because one, we're working on a River District Master Plan, which we believe will be a catalyst for potential redevelopment of the existing corporation yard site. If that's the case, we need to get out of the way of that future development, so we need to start the planning now We already own the property south of White Rock Road at Prairie City, but we need to come up with a site plan, do the environmental clearance, and start positioning ourselves to develop that site so that we can start moving on to it. The next couple of priorities are tied directly to the state's Advanced Clean Fleets mandate. And again, I'll give you a lot of detail on that at your next council meeting. But in essence, the state is mandating that at least 50% of our fleet will need to be electric over the next decade or so. And this is both the light-duty vehicles all the way up to some of the heavy equipment that we have. The state has already implemented a regulatory framework and a system for ensuring that the local agencies have to report their progress. As a result, unfortunately, the regulations of that fleet mandate are going to require a full-time position. This position would have to oversee vehicle purchases and procurement. We also have to ensure that every fleet that we hire is also compliant with the ACF, the Advanced Clean Fleet. So that's something else this position would track. There are exemptions, but those have to be tracked. They have to be reported to the state.
Mark, is that reporting going to CARB or some other agency?
Primarily to CARB.
Okay, thank you.
CARB can also request on-demand reports, which in some cases have to be reported back to them within a week. So we're going to need to have someone who's dedicated to that position, who can respond quickly to those requests. A lot of the information that will be requested are vehicle telematics, the systems of data that are reported from each pool vehicle, each fleet vehicle, that needs to be reported back to ensure compliance with ACF. Our staff is not trained for working on high voltage electric vehicles, so this position would oversee the development of training of staff and safety measures for that same staff. Of course, pursuing funding and grant opportunities. Even to the point of managing all the chargers that we are going to have to put in place. If the power goes out, those chargers go out. Someone needs to come in and reset the chargers, otherwise our fleet will lie uncharged and unavailable. There are credit programs, low carbon fuel standard credit programs that also have to be tracked, which are opportunities for us to get revenue back from the state for using electric vehicles. But again, it requires a extensive amount of reporting. And this position would we're listing it as a manager, it would liaise with every department that operates fleet vehicles. A companion to that is priority number 4, fleet management software. Again, the reporting required by ACF is massive. It is very extensive. If someone were to have to do that by hand, by spreadsheet, something that alone could be a full-time job. So there are fleet management software packages out there that streamline that process and generate reports that are consistent with the regulations that we're being subjected to here by the state. Moving on, item number 5. This is addressing our current deficiencies. Our fleet shop is working overtime. We're actually very limited staff in our fleet maintenance shop. We have more large vehicles because of the SB 1383 mandate, so we're maintaining a larger fleet of heavy vehicles. The equipment's wearing out. It's becoming hazardous for our folks. The lifts. This was an item that was on last year's budget request, and it still not only still needs to get addressed, but it's taking on greater urgency. Our light-duty vehicle shop roof. This thing, we might actually need to go to the Historic Preservation League to get permission to fix this thing. It is something else. it features, we all have a gutters on our homes. We actually have a gutter inside the fleet shop to capture rain and convey it out of the shop. So there's a gutter hanging in the roof. I should have had a picture of it, but I don't think that's very conducive if we're going to be working on high voltage electric vehicles in that facility. So again, I think that's why we feel it's an important priority. Despite the fact that we're talking about eventually getting out of this site, we do have an urgent need to fix the site that we're currently in.
Thank the team for their resourcefulness.
Yes, sir. I don't think any of that team is left. I think it's been there so long. You've heard recurringly this evening staffing levels that haven't changed since all the way back to 2008. As it stands right now today, I have less street maintenance personnel working for me than I had prior to the recession. And yet the city has not only grown considerably in that time, but the infrastructure that they maintain has 20 years of wear and tear. This is the preventative maintenance team. We all know the importance of preventative maintenance in our homes. You invest a little so that you don't have to pay a lot. That's the value of having this personnel, that they can go out there and keep these things repaired and as in order as possible, so that we don't have to do like major reconstructions of our roadways. Item number 8, our fleet. We have some vehicles that are 20 years old that we're just maintaining them as much as possible. We just had one of our bucket trucks, a 20-year-old bucket truck that finally gave out. And so, very slowly, every year you're going to be seeing that not only do these aged vehicles need to be replaced, but because of ACF, many of them, at least 50% of our overall fleet, will need to be electric. The cost of these electric versions of these vehicles is more than twice the cost of replacing these things with a standard, internal combustion engine version. Some of these vehicles don't even exist yet, and again, you'll hear more about this at your next meeting during my detailed presentation on advanced clean fleets. But this is a big thing for us. This ACF regulation is going to touch all departments. And in fact, my next slide will address that as well. Priority number 9, this is a succession planning issue. We have 4 engineers in my department. One of them is going to retire next month. So we are going to see some upward mobility. We do need to start backfilling with some lower level, younger folks, that we can train up over time, so that we can ensure that we're properly staffed in our engineering division, and that we have enough staff to pursue grant opportunities and additional reporting that goes along with state and federal grants. And then to that same point, item number 10, the traffic operations supervisor. This is a position that we used to have in Public Works. We had a really outstanding individual who could manage that department. He retired. We've been blessed to have someone in our street operations department who was capable of overseeing the 2 divisions. But again, succession planning issues are coming up, and we're finding ourselves again in need of having someone who can focus on the traffic signal division and supervising those folks. So my second slide, you see here a number just short of $11 million worth of charging stations. Now, this is not a this year ask. This is just identifying, again, this advanced clean fleets issue touches every department. SMUD commissioned a study to look at all of our facilities here in the city of Folsom and to determine the number of charging stations that would be needed for our electric fleet when we get fully implemented. You'll see that every department here, the water treatment plant, 2 different maintenance facilities in Parks and Rec, The police department has charging stations, and in fact, they have more urgent charging needs because they need to be able to get those vehicles charged up quickly and get them back out on patrol. City Hall has fleet. The corporation yard has fleet. The costs that you see here are only for light duty fleet. As we also start introducing heavy duty vehicles into the electric fleet, you're going to see additional charging needs. And that'll be primarily down at the corp yard and the water treatment plant. And then as I alluded to earlier, our shop is not OSHA compliant for working on electric vehicles. For example, OSHA requires a 10-foot bubble around any electric vehicle that's being maintained. And in that bubble, you can't have anything that could arc. So nothing metal within that 10-foot bubble. Our current shop, we're lucky if we have about 48 inches of clearance on some sides. There's no way the current shop is going to be OSHA compliant. So we're going to have to consider at some point whether building a facility for electric vehicle maintenance down at the existing corp yard, relying on vendors and dealers to repair electric fleet, which will take longer, and then those vehicles will be out of service. Or, as I mentioned earlier, accelerating the development of the new corp yard site and focusing on building an electric vehicle site maintenance facility down there.
Mark, how much we can get through the grants from state and feds, that number?
That's unknown. I can tell you that it's going to be statewide competitive. So that means every agency in the state of California is going through the same thing. They're all going to be fighting for that same pot of money. So I wouldn't calculate that we're going to get any grant funding. We'll go after it, but I wouldn't rely on us being at the front of that pack.
Okay, so they do have money at state and feds because they are promoting this one.
Particularly the federal government has made it a priority in their recent infrastructure bill to help agencies fund fleet electrification. So there are pots of money out there. We will find them. We will make a run at them.
Yeah, how effectively we can write the grants, even I heard last time also. Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that, everything we have to bring from the Folsom taxpayers,
that's correct.
We got to fight for our fair share from state and feds. Thank you.
Right.
Mark, I have a question about the EVs. So, we have this 2035 goal, but I asked PG&E a while back, is that a reasonable time frame for us to achieve that goal? And I got a reluctant no. So at what point do you believe that we will hear from the state whether it is achievable for us to be, utilizing electronic cars and stations? At what point do you anticipate where the state may say, okay, instead of 2035, it is now 2050?
Yeah, I think everybody's hoping they'll move the finish line back, but so far they haven't indicated what those triggers might be. They have moved forward with this regulatory framework of the ACF. They also have the Advanced Clean Trucks regulation, which is geared towards the manufacturers. So they're pushing the manufacturers to develop these electric versions of transit buses, delivery vehicles, construction equipment. They're not helping them with funding, to drive that goal, but they're regulating them in that direction. When will the state, finally relent and say, okay, we've pushed far enough, we're going to move the line back? There's a lot of folks that are, like the League of California Cities and some of the larger municipalities in the state are advocating for that. But so far, I haven't seen that the state's indicated that they're ready to budge on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, just in terms of how the green waste collection program evolved this seems to be following a similar playbook, if you don't mind that term, where it started out as conceptual stuff. The reporting structure became a little bit more refined. The dates were moved at least one time. The reporting structure became much, much more defined. Some drop-dead dates were added, and then there are penalties added. So we're somewhere in the middle of that story with this conversion.
Yeah, probably.
Probably at the beginning of it, but nonetheless.
I'd say, yeah, in some respects we are in the beginning, but boy, the state was real quick to put out there that if you don't comply, you're going to be fined. Yeah. That part they got up very quickly. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Very similar in a lot of ways to SB 1383, up to the point where in 1383's case, we had the unfortunate need to and ability to foist that burden onto the ratepayers. We had to up our utility bills. We can't do that with ACF. It is going to fall primarily on, hopefully on grant opportunities where we can get them, but this will be predominantly a general fund burden.
Yeah, thank you.
So my last slide, and I'm not going to go over all this, just the highlighted one. As you know, our waste and recycling division is funded through utility bills. It's an enterprise fund. So that's not the purpose of tonight's discussion. They do have one general fund obligation, which is item number 2 here. You see the local low income assistance program. This is a program that we offer to folks that are in a certain income bracket to assist them with our waste and recycling program and with their rates. That cannot, through SB 1383, does not allow that to be funded through enterprise funding. So that is one general fund burden that'll come out of my waste and recycling division.
So, Mark, are you asking more, or that's the money you're asking more or less?
This is
every year.
This is the annual allocation.
Annual. Okay,
yes.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Mark?
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite Marcus Yasutake to finish off the department head presentations. He's our Director of Environmental and Water Resources Department.
Good evening, Mayor Kozlowski, members of the council. Marcus Yasutake, Environmental Resources Director. I was only allotted 30 minutes, so I'll try to make it go as quickly as I can.
Don't you dare.
You have enterprise funds. This should be 2 minutes.
Yes, it'll be very quick. So the table before you is just some of the positions and some of the utilities and other items that we're going to propose in this year's budget. The first two are in wastewater collections. One's on the utility maintenance side, and one is wastewater collections. So those are pretty straightforward in terms of just the inspections, like Mark said, proactively looking at our infrastructure to ensure that, one, that's being taken care of, but if we do recognize any deficiencies, we can take care of it before it becomes an emergency. The water treatment plant generator, that would be a one-time cost to replace the existing generator that I believe was installed either in 98 or 99. So it's at that point where it costs almost about as much to refurbish it than it is to get a complete replacement and have something brand new with, another 15 to 20 year lifespan associated with it. Plus, it would meet the requirements of the state of California. Water treatment plant chemicals and utilities. This was a request last year or this fiscal year, and it will be again in the upcoming fiscal year. Just as we've heard, costs for almost everything have increased, and we saw that in our water treatment plant chemicals as well as the utility costs. And so what we're likely to do is, while it's a repeat for this fiscal year, it's likely one that will become a base budget moving forward, because we don't anticipate those costs decreasing. An increase in water conservation contracts. This would be a one-time request for about $130,000 to evaluate, and I've got it on the next slide, but basically looking at the new water use efficiency standards for the state of California under Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668, so another state unfunded mandate. Water meter infrastructure, this would be repeat till fiscal year 26-27. We have about 5,000 meters that are undersized in the city. They're 5/8 by 3/4 inch meters. Standard size is 1 inch, so this would be to replace those over the next 4 fiscal years. So this would be a repeat, and then at some point would drop off the books. And then some temporary salaries in wastewater collections and water conservation just to help in the interim while we possibly have some vacancies, as well as not hiring some full-time staff in water conservation until we fully identify what the total impacts of Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668 are. And the highlighted green is a position that is currently in the most recently adopted rate study and the rates that are being collected today. The main difference between the first two is there's a vehicle associated. That's why it has the higher cost, but that would drop off obviously after the first year. From an operations and maintenance standpoint, getting a small water meter testing program going, let in copper sampling. So there was new rules that came out at the end of 2020. There's a revision that we're expecting this year, sometime maybe in August or so, that just requires different sampling and increased sampling for the city, but also a public outreach part to identify lead services if there are any within the city of Folsom. So there's some additional work that we're going to have to do with our public. And as I mentioned, the water use efficiency requirements from the State Water Resources Control Board, and seeing what we have to do to meet the goals and the requirements that are included in that. As always, water and wastewater infrastructure replacement, and you can see in the list just the different items that we annually replace or rehab on a continuing basis, so I won't read them all off. But one thing I didn't have in here that I've heard based on from what the fellow departments have accounted for tonight was things related to infrastructure and energy. So energy efficiency savings, energy conservation measures, that's one thing that I've been working on, but listening to what some of my fellow department heads have said, I think that I should put that as a priority. It doesn't initially have any cost associated with it, but we would bring something likely forward to City Council that would identify the various energy conservation measures that would be associated to almost all of our departments across the city, which could account for some of the items that are included in some of the other budgets that are in the general fund. So we might be able to take care of some of those, no guarantee, but we might be able to take care of some of those in what's called an energy services audit or an investment grade audit. Councilmember Kozlowski, I think, is very familiar with these, but essentially what we would aim to do is the new equipment and or conservation measures that the city would put in place would fund those projects over a 10, 15, maybe 20-year lifespan. So knowing what I've heard, I will be sure to put that at one of the items on my priority list so we can get that out sooner rather than later. And that was all I had.
Thank you, Marcus. Any questions of Marcus before we move on to the next phase of the presentation?
I'm delighted that you brought that concept forward tonight. Just for the audience, that's what I do professionally. And that is why I asked the question about whether or not the water department issues a water bill to the parks department, because that conservation could be substantial and help pay for the irrigation controllers, for instance.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, department heads. I mentioned at the very start of the agenda item that we've already been talking about the fiscal year 24-25 budget for some time. Why is that? Because for almost 4 years, we've been sharing information with our community and the city council that sales tax revenue growth has significantly slowed. Expenses have outpaced that growth rate, and beginning in the next fiscal year, we are facing structural deficit. I have already provided the City Council with several robust presentations on this subject. I'm going to now provide a brief review. You can see here that about 61% of our revenue for the general fund comes from property tax and sales tax revenue. Functions that are paid out of the general fund are found in the fire department, the police department, the community development department, parts of the public works department, the Parks and Recreation Department, the internal service departments like Human Resources and Finance, the City Attorney's Office, the City Clerk's Office, the City Manager's Office, even the City Council members' own budget. Folsom's sales tax growth rate has slipped off the very predictable trajectory that this city has counted on for many, many years. Our sales tax growth rate averaged about 6% annually from fiscal year 2010 through fiscal year 2018. And since then, it's dropped down to a much slower growth rate, about 2.3% per year. So you see here, note the beige line here on this graph, which depicts sales tax revenue. Note how it slips below the blue line, which depicts property tax revenue, which is still doing its usual historic 7%-ish growth rate. The dip in our sales tax revenue growth rate is due to a shift in what we buy. There is a shift from purchasing things to purchasing services. How we buy it. Folsom residents rely heavily on online purchasing platforms, which means less sales tax revenue for the city, and how much we can afford to buy. If we are spending more of our disposable income on things like housing, streaming services, PG&E bills, and other non-taxable items, we have less to spend on taxable items. We can do very little to influence our property tax growth. Proposition 13, passed by the voters, mandates that unless a property is sold, assessed values on properties increase only by the change in the consumer price index or 2%, whichever is less. I point this out because, as I mentioned during the sales tax presentation in October, I think that there's a misunderstanding that just because you can pop onto Zillow and see that you or your neighbor's house is worth $1 million, that doesn't at all mean that the city of Folsom is collecting property tax at $1 million valuation for that home. I'm going to repeat information here that I've shared with the council and the community many times, but it's important and I keep hearing it, so I need to restate it. Understandably so, I think a lot of people point to development south of Highway 50 in Folsom Ranch and what homes are selling for there, and they think that our coffers are absolutely bursting here in City Hall. This belief sometimes is that those homes are having some kind of surprise impact on the city of Folsom's finances. Increases in property tax revenue due to development south of 50 are actually no windfall and no surprise. They were always contemplated and they were built into our planning and projections. Also, part of those property tax revenues go to Sacramento County due to an annexation cost-sharing agreement that continues into perpetuity. Most importantly, with that planned development comes expenses to provide services and infrastructure maintenance for that area, and those expenses are included in our projections. This creates a zero net effect on the general fund. There are growing service level needs in the Folsom Plan area, and we have to be planning for those in future budgets. We can't depend on property tax growth to support general fund operations. This is a chart that depicts our structural deficit, and I sure wish it looked differently. We've been highlighting this for years to the City Council, but it is now upon us, and as we develop the next budget. This chart has the blue bars displaying the general fund's projected total revenues for the current budget over the next 5 years, and the dark red line is projected expenditures for the next 5 years. This is expenditures without a cut in services. So this is what it will cost the city to continue to provide all the services we are providing right now. This projection goes out to fiscal year 2029, as you can see, and by that point, we are projecting a $4.6 million annual funding gap. When you look at this chart, please don't think we're going to be somehow deficit spending in those future years. We can't by law, and we of course won't. During each of those years, we will continue to deliver a balanced budget as is required, but we will be providing less and continuing to put off millions and millions of dollars of deferred maintenance needs. And we will continue to have no capacity to save up for things that we know are going to break. Like, for example, our huge revenue producer, the Aquatic Center. We know the pools will need replastering. You probably know that in your own home if you own a pool. We know pool pumps have a certain lifespan. We know concrete and tile degrade over time, especially if they've got chlorine dumping on them constantly. But we're not able to save for these eventualities. So that critical fiscal proactivity is missing from our current budget plus all of these future projected budgets. So yes, we have a balanced budget and we will continue to have balanced budgets in all of these future years. But when you just keep deferring critical needs, your city starts to look and feel very different, and you really can't say that we're doing just fine, because we're not. So what assumptions are we basing this on? You know, you look at that chart and you're thinking, well, where'd that come from? Well, in broad terms, our sales tax predictions are based on our expert sales tax consultants' advice and our own efforts in tracking this issue through financial and municipal government resources. As you can imagine, there are cities up and down California that look at sales tax revenue a lot, and we confer very closely with them and other experts. We can also do a look back, and we do that, to see what our actuals yielded each year. And for sales tax, there's a very clear established trend of a drop down from a historical average of about 6% for the city to a bit over 2%. We don't see that changing. Our property tax projections are based on our own very careful tracking of our property valuation within the city, as well as county assessor data that we feed into a property tax model that we use. What about assumptions on the expense side? Our expense projections are based on what we know we will be paying for our employees' salaries based on labor union agreements approved by the City Council, plus our best guess as to what benefits will cost for those employees in the future. We don't even get our healthcare benefit cost estimates until the middle of the fiscal year, so that gets really challenging to try to plan for that effectively. But what we do know is that our healthcare benefits consultant, also an expert, tracks these things very closely, and we've been dealing with double-digit increases that are shocking for our organization to absorb. CalPERS pension benefits for our employees are another wild card. If CalPERS has a bad year, we have to pick up the difference. There are also many non-employee related examples of costs going up, and our department heads could probably reel off the ones that affect their own departments in their sleep, I promise you. For example, we know that the cost of our software packages citywide are going up every time we try to renew them. We know that the cost of basic maintenance contracts are going up every time we need to re-up, and you saw that just recently with the Parks and Trails maintenance discussion of that contract. And there are hundreds of other examples, large and small. So you might look back on past budgets and note that there have been years where our projected and our actuals didn't match. You might, for example, comment that there have been years where our actual revenue exceeded our projected revenue, or maybe our expenses were off, or maybe our reserve ended up being better than we projected. So you might therefore conclude that our financial situation is a lot better than it seems. You might even somehow conclude that there is no structural deficit and there's nothing to be concerned about here. Well, it's not that simple. I really, 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 really wish it was. Yes, that has happened. And it's bound to happen with such a large budget, meaning there are going to be discrepancies in these, in projections versus actuals, because none of this is an exact science. But there are very clear explanations as you start at the Great Recession recovery point and move forward through the years to today. For example, backing up to the post-recession recovery point, the council was devoted to using extra revenue to refill a very, very depleted reserve. I remember those days. I was there. It was very bad. There are employees here that remember it. Budgets also have a contingency line item each year. Sometimes you need to use the contingency, sometimes you don't, but you can't predict. If you could predict that you were going to use the contingency, you would, of course, budget for it as an expenditure, but you have to put in a contingency. Later on, COVID hit, and every public entity, including ours, was just trying to make our best guess as to how long everything would stay closed, what would they allow us to do, what kinds of programs could we open that bring revenue in. We were just doing the best we could. Some things opened up sooner than we expected, which is good, but it did change our actual numbers. The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funding also skews the numbers. We can't recognize those funds in our budget until the corresponding expenditure happens, and sometimes that's in a completely different fiscal year. The same thing happens with expenses that the council approves in one year that end up being purchased in the next. These dollars sit in the restricted portion of our fund balance as encumbrances until the item is purchased. Our community development department can have huge swings based on development revenues pouring in, and then another huge swing when expenditures go out. It actually used to live in its own fund because of this kind of volatility, but it quickly went $10 million in the hole in just about 3 years. I mean, that's like lightning fast due to those swings. So past city councils brought it back into the general fund so that the general fund could help absorb some of those unbudgeted swings as they balanced out. That makes for some ups and downs in the budget that can be confusing or misleading if not properly analyzed. The bottom line is that, yes, we're always going to be a little off. I, for one, think it's a lot easier to be conservative in projections so that if we end up with more money than we expected, we can buy an extra one-time thing or two after the books have settled. I prefer that to having to cut, quite frankly. But of course, the degree of risk in our budget is ultimately at the council's discretion. But that just gives you a flavor of all that goes into this, and I'm very grateful for our staff and consultant experts who help us sort through the ups and downs and ins and outs of all of this. So, as you stare at this structural deficit, your first reaction might be that we should have been tightening our belts over the years. I've shown this slide before, but I'll show it again. These are some of the many things we've already done over the years to stay very lean, inappropriately lean, I would say. Over the last 10 years, the city has significantly reduced staffing levels. We've really only been able to add positions to support services in the Folsom Plan area. All departments are doing more with less. I think that you heard that 1,000-fold this evening. We've used part-time staff or contract employees when feasible, increased employees' contribution toward retirement. Our employees now pay their entire share. We've eliminated retiree health benefits for new employees. We've increased employees' required contributions to their health benefits. We've restructured education incentive pay for cost savings. We've extended the number of steps in pay ranges to have smaller annual pay increases. We've eliminated longevity pay for new employees, and we've capped accrued leave balances and cash out amounts, among many other tactics. So some would tell us to cut spending right now. Like, okay, great, you did that over the 10 years, what are you doing now? Well, we've done a lot of hard work and then some. For the current budget year, department heads put forward about $15 million in general fund requests and asked for 29 positions, and they were being conservative. We were only able to include about $1.99 million in requests, and that includes $697,000 of capital costs paid by other funds, and we were only able to recommend, if you can imagine, for a city this size, 4 positions. I'll come back to this during the pie discussion, but remember that about 72% of our budget is employee salary and benefits for our outstanding workforce, appropriately so because we are, at core, a service-driven business. Salaries and benefit costs are going up, and if we're going to choose to cut, we're going to either have to unload services we provide and reduce the number of employees we have, lower our compensation packages, or some combination of all of the above. As I've shared before, remaining competitive in this region when it comes to employee compensation is already difficult today, and it only gets more challenging from here. During recent negotiations with labor groups, the benchmark used for determining total compensation included neighboring cities that have implemented local sales tax measures. It is unlikely that the city of Folsom will be able to keep up with the compensation packages that cities with vastly different financial resources can afford to offer. Beyond salaries, the cost of doing business has just continued to go up. Bids are coming in at twice what we expected in some cases. We have no buffer to keep up with that. I hear a lot of very well-meaning comments that we have millions of dollars in reserves, so we ought to just fix our structural deficit with those dollars. And remember, fixing our structural deficit only allows us to keep doing what we're doing right now, not to add additional things or people. A gentle reminder that the reserve is meant for emergencies, and careful attention has been given by prior city councils to keep refeeding that critical reserve as often as possible to be ready for the next economic downturn, because they always come. I've been doing this long enough, you see the cycles, and there's lots of folks out here who have seen them as well. They always come. Cities need their reserve when times are tough, and so you want to be really careful when you start pulling from them. That's a super slippery slope. And I probably should not be trying to say that so late in the evening. Super slippery slope. This is not a recession or a financial or other emergency where the use of the reserve is warranted. This is simply service costs outgrowing the means to provide those services, a situation that cannot be fixed with one-time dollars. This is a chart we've shown the City Council many times, and I know you're familiar with it. It goes back to fiscal year 2006, and you can see the city struggling through the recession and using the reserve and just how low we got, precariously low. You can also see that with the trajectory we are on, seeing operating deficits in each of the next 5 years, adding to the fund balance at the same pace as expenditure growth will be difficult. So we will likely begin seeing that red line starting to decrease as a percentage of fund balance. Low reserve levels threaten the city's ability to provide essential services in the future and ensure future obligations are funded. And the City Council has seen this chart before as well. The reserve is an emergency fund, and this is not an emergency. But if you decided to call this an emergency and use the reserve to fix this, I think you can see what happens very quickly to a fund that helped get us through the recession and the pandemic. The bars in blue show your current level of fund balance at 20.9%, and then it drops off to 13% by fiscal year 26-27, and then down to 5% by fiscal year 28-29. Alternatively, if the council were to use the fund balance now and bring it down to 17%, which is the low end of the council's newly adopted reserve policy, as displayed by the red bars, your fund balance would drop to 9% by fiscal year 26-27 and to 2%, or about $2.9 million by fiscal year 28-29. 2% gives city managers and CFOs extreme stomach aches. You would never want to be there. We could fairly easily drain our reserve down to virtually nothing. And then we have zero capacity to run services when the next recession that will come, or unexpected pandemic or catastrophic event hits us. Unfortunately, we don't have the reserve resources of our neighbors. Rancho Cordova, West Sacramento, and Elk Grove are all in the 80 to 88% range when you compare total reserves as a percentage of general fund expenditures. Roseville's at 54%, and the city of Folsom is lowest by far at 29%. Just to wrap up this review, I want to emphasize that none of this is fun for me to present. I do not delight in this. I wish I had different news. I wish I had different facts. But this is our fiscal reality, and I know that this council, just like all the other great city councils before it, will rise to the occasion and make hard and necessary decisions for the benefit of our residents in this amazing city. So from here, I'd like to spend just a few moments on the budget development process before I conclude by seeking important pie allocation direction from you. Here is a simple timeline of upcoming budget-related events. It doesn't include tonight, which is you providing direction on the general fund allocation pie. It does show you that our CFO will be before you at your March 12th meeting to present the second quarter financial report. As a staff, we will be spending the greater part of March, April, and May crafting the city manager's preliminary budget. We plan to bring that to you at your May 28th meeting. And you may be asking, gee, I'm used to receiving it more like the meeting before that. We have had a very key budget manager on a long time leave, and that is, we are struggling in a number of areas in the finance department with staffing. So this is just the way it needs to be. June 11th will be your first opportunity to adopt that budget, as it will be your first public hearing on the subject. June 25th is a placeholder for a second public hearing if the council still has not adopted the budget. The council may hold as many special meetings as it wants beyond its regular meetings, as long as we properly notice them, if it feels it needs more public hearings to adopt. I know that the City Council understands this process, but just for clarity for anyone watching or listening today, the city manager, that's me, develops the preliminary budget to the best of her ability based on selecting high priority expenditures that fit into the council adopted pie and its newly adopted strategic plan priorities, and balancing expenditures with available resources. The city manager submits that preliminary budget to the City Council. The City Council reviews that preliminary budget, amends it, if desired by council consensus, and then adopts the final version by a vote of the council. Notably, the city manager does not vote on the budget. Adopting the budget is the council's biggest job because it is the key implementation document that it expresses the city's financial priorities during any given year. For the current fiscal year, the pie was adopted unanimously by everyone at this dais, by the City Council, as was the budget itself. Everyone at this dais voted for it in one public hearing. If the city council is unable to reach a consensus vote to adopt a budget by June 30th, the city manager's preliminary budget automatically becomes the city's budget. And now onward to the pie, which is where I really need the council's direction tonight. Every year that I've been city manager, I've come to you before I develop the preliminary budget to ask if the percentages devoted to our general fund allocations look about right. Just to repeat information I've shared with the city council before, this is what we are currently buying with our general fund dollars. Probably not surprisingly, about 72% of the general fund goes to salaries and wages and benefits, including 3-year employment agreements that the city council also approved unanimously. We need people power to make Folsom happen and meet our community's understandably high expectations. Next slide. In terms of departmental allocations, this is how our pie looks right now. The city of Folsom prioritizes public safety, and the pie distribution appropriately and clearly reflects the city's top priority of public safety. As you can see here, 51% of our general fund currently goes to police and fire, and the rest is allocated to the many other functions that help make our city special. Again, this pie was unanimously approved by this council before I began preparation of the preliminary budget that ultimately became the council's unanimously adopted budget. I thought it would be helpful to go through a little pie history. Here is the approved pie from fiscal year 2019-20, 49% to public safety, 26% to police, and 23% to fire. Here is the approved pie for fiscal year 2020-21, 50% to public safety, 27% to police, 23% to fire. Here's the approved pie from fiscal year 21-22, 51% to public safety, 27% to police, 24% to fire. Here's the approved pie from fiscal year 22-23, 50% to public safety, 26% to police, and 24% to fire. And then right back to where I started. Here again is the approved pie for the current fiscal year 23-24. 51% to public safety, 25% to police, and 26% to fire. In this case, you see fire's budget increase due to the need to add 9 firefighters in preparation for opening a new fire station south of Highway 50. It's important to note that although fire's percentage allocation increased, that did not create a dollar increase or a cut to police. The total budget actually continued to increase. As I flipped through these slides, you likely noticed a common theme. They haven't changed much over the years, and certainly not over my time as city manager, which were the pies I chose to highlight tonight. Sometimes you'll see fire and police flip back and forth by a percentage or two, and that's usually because of some big need, like buying body-worn cameras for our wonderful police officers, buying an expensive public safety vehicle, or currently like staffing up for a fire station we are obligated to build and provide minimum staffing for in the Folsom Plan area. But the total is always about 50% public safety. So they all look very similar because this city council and prior city councils prioritize public safety and then direct the city manager to seek to use the other half of the general fund to manage all of the other great things that make Folsom what it is. I will add that the pie also looked a lot like this for the almost 14 years I spent here before my time as city manager, and it probably looked a lot like that even before that time. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. The direction I'm seeking is what you see on this slide here. It's relatively simple and yet complex at the same time. Does the city council want the fiscal year 24-25, that's the next budget, to reflect a similar allocation of funds as we see in the current pie that's on the screen, adopted unanimously by the city council? And if there is a desired change, which pieces should shrink or grow, and by about how much? Answers to these key questions will be extremely important as I leave the meeting this evening and work with my staff to begin preparation of the preliminary budget for your review. Thank you, and I will turn it back over to Mayor Kozlowski.
Thank you very, very much for that detailed presentation. We have a couple of people that would like to make public comments on this item. Does the council have any just questions rather than opinions to share right now for what the city manager presented?
I'll wait for
it. Okay.
I have a question. this is the first year, this last year, that the police dropped from, their top was 27, but I looked back to over 10 years, and they've never been below 26% until this last year, which was 25%. So I
What's
just
your
want to
question?
clarify that. I'm just clarifying that.
Okay.
Yeah, I went through each
No
of the
questions.
percentages for, all the last pie charts, and if you look at, Stacey, you can flip back, for example, like you see, yes, police is at 25% in.
That was this year.
Further back this year, yeah. So here is
26.
police at 26,667, 26,606.
So I'm talking about the percentage. This is 26. The previous one said 26 or 27. The previous three you showed before that said 26 or 27.
Right, if you go back, it's actually, it's very typically that police is actually, not like it's a, I don't like this, I'm uncomfortable with police and fire being in this sort of, it's like a, this competition. I'm trying to just point out that it's generally 50%. We do the best we can for departments over the years. Sometimes there's police at 27%, there's fire at 24%. It does flip back and forth according to the need. What I wanted to point out is, you see here in 21-22, there's police at 27% with $24,791,486 at 27%, and then you move forward a year, and they've gone up to $26,667 and $347 at 26%. So it's not like the police was held back; it's just the percentage change. So
The percentages haven't flipped. I want to clarify that the police have never dropped below 26% until this last year, period. That's it.
We had the
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
We had the unique circumstance of having to staff a new fire station that was required by our development plan for south of 50.
That's fine. I'm not comparing it to fire. I'm just clarifying that she said they swap and.
Yeah,
So I'm not referencing fire. I'm just saying police is the first time that we've been under 26% of the budget was this last year, and I won't comment any further. That was just a clarifying.
Yeah, no, that is accurate.
Very good. Okay. Public comment.
Okay, we have two requests to speak on this item. First will be Justin Rathel. Justin will be followed by Bruce Klein.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm really up here tonight to start off with advocating for more data. You all have some very, very tough decisions ahead of you. And looking at the presentation tonight, I know a lot of work went in from the department heads to put their requests together. And I'm sure there's a lot of data behind those. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see those tonight, and I would love to see them. I just really think that we need to move more in the direction of having all of this data open to the citizens. For example, when we're talking about hiring a staff member, does it make more sense to outsource that? Does it make more sense to contract it? I don't know. I don't know how you guys make those decisions and evaluate those personnel requests. There's a lot of data that I'm sure is behind there, and I'm sure they've done a lot of this analysis, but I do think it's really important to share that with the citizens so they understand why you guys are making the decisions you're making. What do our response times look like? What are the requests coming in for extra time at the library? All these things, we probably have the data, but we don't know what they look like. So I'd love to see that. The other thing I'd love to see is a multi-year process. I think this one-off response of we need this repaired or this fixed, we should have facility reserve studies that we look at and that show what these costs are going to be over the next few years. I'd love to see that data put together in a more long-term process to where we say we know what roofs need to be replaced, what HVAC units need to be replaced, where we need more wallpaper. I wouldn't run my business like this, and I'm sure you guys aren't either, and that data is probably out there. I just don't know what it looks like. So I'd love to see that just commitment to open data in this budget process would really help us understand from a citizen's perspective why you guys are going to make the decisions you make. And I think lastly, presenting a structural deficit when we know we have to keep a balanced budget. I've stood up here before and said, I don't like it. I don't think it's what we're actually going to do. So presenting that to the citizens and showing a plot isn't the case. What we should be saying is we're going to have to cut these costs, right? You guys are going to have to make some decisions to cut those costs, and here's what's on the chopping block. Be honest, be frank about that. in this budgetary process, and please go out more than 1 year so folks understand the tough decisions that you're being asked to make. So thank you all. Good luck with this process. Thank you to the staff for all the work they're putting in, and yeah, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker will be Bruce Klein.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager and members of the council. Bruce Klein, 33-year resident of the city of Folsom, also co-chair of Folsom Takes Action, the Citizens Special Sales Tax Measure. Thanks very much for the proposed level of service discussion in frank and detailed terms. We've heard it before, but it was good to hear that this year in particular. We talk to thousands and thousands of people. They still don't understand. They still simply do not understand the issues. Probably takes us 10, 15 minutes just to even get them there. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it tiring? Absolutely. We've got team members putting 40 hours a week in plus just to educate folks and let them know what the true fiscal state of our city is. And I really appreciate that you are saying this is the fiscal state of our city. People don't believe it. I think this council believes it and knows that we have to do something about it. The great thing about seeing these proposed levels of service are that these are just basic needs. There's no fluffy bunnies and unicorns in this mix. I mean, this is just survival, folks. And we have to address that. There's no question about it. And the other thing that's no question is that revenue is the only option. I think you've made it very clear, Ms. Anderson, that cutting is not possible. We say that and we say that and we say that over and over and over again. The citizens measure, I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but interestingly enough, all of the percentages that are called out in the citizens measure with the percentages called out all take 100% into account the things that are the immediate needs and fund them all. So people talk about, I hate taxes, we get the, don't even talk to me about no taxes, I won't even hear the T word. They have to realize that the average citizen, $15,000 of taxable goods in the city, $20,000 purchases of taxable goods in the city, all in extra cost is $150 per family per year, or $200 per family per year. Interesting to hear about a potential stormwater fee. We talked about that a lot to people who don't understand that. How are you funding these stormwater repairs? There's no fee. Well, I'd rather give you all a check and sign a contract to give you $150 or $200 a year for the next 20 years, not do this. But hearing this gives us inspiration, even though it's super tiring to get out there and make sure we're going to make a difference for the community. Last two pieces. When I talk to soccer people, they cannot hold a tournament on any grass field in our community because of the conditions of them. There's a revenue loss significantly. Our community center is, you heard it tonight, $1.5 to $2.1 million. It's a tired facility and it needs upgrade. You can go through all of our facilities and talk about revenue opportunities that need to be there. And last I'll say is, you've got to do something for a revenue measure, whatever that is, whether it's the citizens measure or your own measure, you've got to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I will entertain discussion. I think it's worthwhile to perhaps on this particular one start with a motion and then discuss the motion, just in order to expedite things. We all on the dais here have seen this, basically this same presentation either once or many times, and our situation hasn't changed dramatically. So with that in mind.
Well, I want to make a comment first because, I mean, I think it's a little bit premature to give direction as far as a pie chart goes. We just got the audited report in front of us tonight, which has very interesting numbers to me. it's saying 2022, we ended at 26.9 in our general fund balance. 2023, it's 30 million. I would like to digest that, ask some questions. Yes, the presentations are similar, but they're not the same. So we don't get the PowerPoints before this meeting, so this is the first time we've seen that. I think it's a little premature to, ask us to prioritize when there was a lot of information shared. The city manager just shared a lot of information. I'm a numbers person. I want to go through the numbers and look at, most likely from the first quarter projections, we're going to be about $1.5 million to $2 million in more revenue this year than last year at a conservative. So to me, that is what we should be prioritizing. Our reserves are completely fully funded. So, I think we really need to look at that when we're looking at the investment that our different departments are asking for. So I'm not ready to say yes. We said yes on the pie chart last year, but yet it changed. So, I would like to be more specific about what percentages. So I would like to come back with a more educated, gives us time to ask city manager and the finance director more questions, and I'd like to bring this back in 2 weeks.
What do you perceive changed about the pie chart that we gave as preliminary direction to the city manager last year and what it ended up being?
It's a percentage difference for police and fire. We said keep the percentages the same. The percentage dropped to, which is about $1 million. So that's a lot of, we just saw crime. All of us got statistics. The crime has almost doubled in every aspect. We just heard tonight I think the retail theft went up 400%. So, we're seeing direct results of our lack of resources for our PD and lack of prioritizing it last year. And, the pit count, which, is ambiguous at times, but it went up 2020 to 114 and 125 is what I heard from a nonprofit person. So, I think we really need to evaluate where our priorities are and what we want to see allocated.
Okay. My comment stands. I think it would be worthwhile to have any further discussion about a proposal. So is anybody willing to make a motion at this point, aside from let's look at it more?
Mayor, just quick one though. I know we're talking fire and police all that time, yeah. Right? It's an
exhibition, not a competition.
Right, right. And we are already. I heard a fire chief was saying engine 35, and the growing homeless issues, and maybe there is we need to talk about that. The priorities wise and where we can alter some funding.
Okay. The presentation from the department heads was things that they would like to have in the budget.
Yeah.
That everybody acknowledges there isn't new revenue to actually fund most of them, including adding apparatus to Station 35. We definitely would like that. That should be something that we prioritize, but as the revenue picture stands right at the moment, it's probably unrealistic to buy that vehicle and additional staff at this point, given some of the realities that Councilwoman Roba has brought up.
Right.
So
it's a balance. We as Mr. Rethel said, it is a very tough decision, to
extremely
show the facts and impacts to the community and where we can prioritize.
Yeah, so. for sure. The underlying thing that has happened, though, and to Mr. Rethel's point, is that what we call a structural deficit is a deficit right up until we make a budget that is balanced, and at that point, we will have retracted services that we've been doing in the past in order to get it to balance. Right. So what we're deciding effectively going forward is to provide less services.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So my point is here, rather than our public safety, we are collecting the general fund almost like maybe 110 millions going forward, or 108 millions, and we are talking $1 million here moving. At high level, I think it's okay.
The distribution, you think, is satisfactory? Okay.
Yeah, because the reason I'm saying it is, I hear, what my colleague is talking about. As the truth is coming, it is adjusting. 0.5% to 1%. You know, that's what I'm looking at here.
Coming into focus.
Right? Yeah, that's where it is. Is it 108 million, 110 million going forward? Our general fund budget approximate
We don't have the projections for next year. The current one is 108 million, so we can't
108
assume that.
million. I'll take that one.
At the first quarterly report, it was projected at 110.
Yeah. I do have other fundamental question though.
Sure.
If our sales tax revenue is it's going down.
It's not in. It's increasing less.
The rate, yeah. Is maybe Stacy. The county gets the pie. Is somebody else is benefiting because of the Folsom?
Everybody. We are net tax exporters to every level of government.
And what we can do to bring our money back. I mean, I'm asking a fundamental question. Is this the more education question, or rather invest more time or a little bit more money with our communication department to educate? As Mr. Bruce Klein said, it takes 15 to 20 minutes to explain to them, that's the problem. So.
Well, as the city manager had in the presentation, there's a few factors to it. Some of it is the online sales. We do get less sales tax from people shopping online. But some of it is people spending just more of their discretionary funds on services that are not taxed. And that is a big factor. And then also the non-taxable things that we pay for, such as our mortgages or, utility bills. They do take up more of our discretionary funds, and so there's less remaining to spend on taxable goods. And those are the three factors that make up the declining increase in our sales tax revenue.
Yeah, among those you're explaining, the only thing makes sense to me is online sales. The reason the people has been living and we have been making purchases, either cars or gas or something, it's pretty consistent in my mind. But the big trend changed because of the COVID and various technology reasons. That's probably the downside of Folsom being more tech friendly. People buy online. I think that's the only thing I am seeing it. I think we have to fight with the county. I'm just saying it.
Yeah, I think the city manager brought up a really easily understood example. Streaming services. Excuse me. All of us, most of us, pay for Spotify or Apple Music or Netflix or something like that. All of those things have increased in price over the last 3 or 4 years, along with inflation, right? And what seemed like, even if you were a real hardcore cord cutter, you can very easily end up with enough streaming services to make up for that big cable TV bill that you had once upon a time, right? So that's just an example, a small example within a household budget of a place where you're paying for non-taxable services rather than having that money to go buy a new pair of shoes,
I hear you, but not kind of millions of things other than online.
It builds up, though, when you spread it across 80,000 people.
Yeah. Anyway, we're trying to find the problem to at least fight for, getting our fair share. That's why when, our Mr. Mark Rakavan is talking about $10 million EV, I said, no, we got to get our fair share from state and feds.
Perhaps the state legislature should be more sensitive to local government issues.
Yeah, Mayor, talking on at high level, that's what the direction is. At high level, a percentage changes here and there based on the needs and demand. We are going to be talking more details.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, we got to digest. That's my point.
Well, the direction we give to the city manager now is just that. It's the broad strokes of how the distribution of the budget will look, and she's going to come back to us after consideration of all the requests of the department heads with a budget that looks, within spitting distance of that distribution. I would expect that it wouldn't be precisely what we see right there.
That's where I am going, our police chief, and whosoever, right?
Yeah.
All the department heads, I shouldn't be calling on any police chief side. Right. Every department head, they should be fighting, for in a reasonable way, what is more important for residents of Folsom.
That's good, thoughtful
Another
commentary.
consideration too, waiting is really looking at our financial policies. We just passed a financial policy of 17% being our minimum general fund or our expected general fund balance, and we are well above that according to this data that we just received tonight, where we have $12 million more dollars, so with $30 million in there, 17% is about 18 point something million. So I would like to have us discuss not using all of that, but maybe using a couple $1 million of it to, which is part of our financial policy, to address some of the capital replacement, the many things that many of the departments asked for capital one-time funds. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things here to prioritize outside of a pie chart. So I would like this council to go back and look at this audit number, talk to the staff about what it means. What does our policy mean? Are we going to abide by the policy of 17% or not? And if we are, then we have some things that we can do to invest back into our city, which we're not supposed to keep, the money from our residents. We're supposed to reinvest the money that we tax them to put back into the community. So we're well over and above our minimum, and I think that's something that needs to be discussed with more information from the staff as far as, if we did that, what would that look like? So, I have great concerns that the reserves went up to $30 million and we're not even talking about it. Because, the thing is, that is money that we can reinvest in the city now and make a difference to our public right now on things that matter to them. And then we can look at the expected probably $2 million in increased revenue we'll have this year and allocate it towards the pie, or allocate it towards the departments that have the big, not the biggest need, everyone has a big need, but the most relevant need to our residents at this moment and the things that we need to attack at this moment. And I think just saying, keep the pie chart the same, which I want to be very specific about what the same means, I think is just, that's just an easy button. I think we need to discuss what we're going to do, take a look at it and get a sense of idea if we fix kids play park, put $500,000 out of the capital replacement fund. How's that going to affect the revenue? If that, how's that going to affect the pie chart? If we give the police the hot team, that will drastically, hopefully, impact our homeless population and our crime. How is that going to affect the pie chart? I mean, I just think saying 26% for fire, 25% for police, 8% for public works is not a real life way that you actually manage the budget. I think this should be reflective. I think it's a great tool, but it should be reflective of the priorities that we discuss and set right now. What is our greatest need right now? And I think just saying, I'll just keep the pie chart the same, the council is not doing its fiscal responsibility addressing the greatest needs that our public is seeing right now.
Ms. Tamani, do you have handy the slide where you had the reserve balance over the years, or could you just let us know?
I don't have the slide, but just for a point of clarification.
Where did we end up last year?
So what you're seeing in the act for the $30 million is your total fund balance. Right. What we report and what is the emergency reserve is your unassigned fund balance. Right. And so there's a difference between the 30 and the 22 million, which you've seen before. And so that $30 million is not available for spending. Only the 22 million of unassigned is available.
It is the general reserve. But I understand there's an unassigned and then there's assigned balances to that. But when we've calculated and projected things or used things from the past, we've used the whole fund balance. And so I'm just being consistent. That's what I've seen in the past, and maybe not all times. So
no, when we're talking about the emergency reserve, it's always the unassigned fund balance. That's always the amount that you're using, because the total fund balance is not available for spending. There's restricted funds in there.
I understand that.
Just want to be clear on that. So it doesn't take you over your 20%.
It definitely takes us over our 17%.
Yes, but
because it says right here 21.4%.
So as a percentage of the budget, where did we end up with the unassigned fund balance?
It says 21.4%.
You have your range of 17 to 20%, and then the current policy now is that anything over the 20% would go to the capital.
Our minimum is
improvement
17%.
Fund.
Our cap is 20. We do not have to adhere to the 20. Our minimum is 17%. That's industry standard.
Understood. If we were to, as part of the budget presentation going forward, I think it would be worthwhile to pull out that part and make a separate discussion or decision about what percentage to place, what percentage specifically to maintain for this next budget, just so that there's clarity about that particular item. But in terms of how the general distribution happens, that's not necessarily pertinent to the distribution of funds on a percentage basis. What we would have is either more funds or less funds, depending on the decision we make on that account. But the percentage distribution wouldn't dramatically change. So, Madam Rohrbaugh, we're talking about a $626,000 delta between fire and police. Are you suggesting that we should flip that? Are you suggesting that the percentage for police has to be higher than fire? Or are you suggesting that some other percentage of one of these other categories needs to be reduced?
I'm saying that
what
we're
is
going to
gonna
have
be
about $2
satisfactory?
million more in revenue this year. And if we want to what do we want to allocate it for? And if we put $1 million towards police, what is that? I don't know how that's going to affect every other department.
Okay, so.
Or if we do $1 million towards Parks and Rec, I don't know how that's, I mean, I can sit here and do the math like I usually do, but I don't want to. That's why I'm saying, why don't you give us time?
If we have
I've made my point. I would like 2 weeks to go through the numbers and figure out where my priorities are and listen to other people in the staff and residents and see where their priorities are.
Okay. My understanding of this, just to repeat what I gleaned from Ms. Tamani's comments, is that if we make a choice to put less money into the unassigned fund balance and we have $1 million of additional funds to spend, it would be distributed according to these percentages. So if we stuck exactly to this exhibit, the police would get an additional $250,000, fire would get $260,000, et cetera. So so are you saying that when we make that decision, you want to have that cascade to the percentages, and you don't want to actually make a decision about the percentages in advance, or you just? I guess what ultimately you're trying to
what is our
micromanage the unassigned. Not micromanage. I apologize. That's an inappropriate way to say that. What you're trying to do is have us have a discussion about how much to put into the unassigned fund balance in the coming year.
What I'm trying to do is
that's what you asked for, is that, right?
What I'm trying to do is with the increased revenue that we're likely to have, right? I mean, the expenses should be.
The projections of revenue.
Right.
They won't be.
Well, if you look at the
certain
quarterly
the start
report,
of the year.
we'll know in March what the next quarterly and where that comes in. Most likely, it's going to be.
It will remain a projection all the way until we have this CAFR report for next year.
Correct.
Okay. So the projections of revenue, we can make a choice about what percentage of that to put into the unassigned fund balance.
So that's where we're differing. I don't think the percentage is the right thing. I think we look at the what we have going on in our city right now.
I'm saying that the band of 17 to 21%, we can make a choice to hold it at 17.
I think our minimum is 17.
21.
We're gonna. I mean, the public is asking. People are asking to go out for our sales tax revenue. I mean, before we go in other people's pockets, I think we should probably, use the money that we have that is not ours, but to reinvest in our city. So yes, I think we should stay at the minimum at 17%. We have 21.4% above. We have 21.4% in an unassigned fund balance. Balance was 4.5% more than what our minimum is. I think we can look at some capital replacement or improvements in our city that our residents want and value. And parks, I mean, a lot of it's parks, trails, one-time funds, a police car or engine. Well, not an engine, won't quite cover it. But so I think I would like to look at the priorities. When you look at other cities' budgets, which I have, they fluctuate every year, 2%, 3%, 4%. So I'm saying look at the needs that we have in our city right now, and let's as a council prioritize by the needs of our city where we're going to put that new revenue that's coming in. And then with other replacement costs that we need in the city, we can look at the general fund reserve and decide as a body if we want to use any of that to fund some capital replacement. That's what I'm saying. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to go by percentage right now. I think we have too many drastic things going on in the city that we need to look at the real priorities of what our residents are screaming at us to do and prioritize it that way with the new revenue coming in.
Okay.
So it is a different discussion than just approving a pie chart. It is a more complicated.
No, it's changing the order of the way that we've had these discussions previously. And it is now, I will say, it is a exercise in micromanaging the departments and the city managers considered opinion about what the priorities are based on all of the department's requests.
Well, I don't see it that way. I see it as our fiscal responsibility. I do not see it as micromanaging. I'm saying where is the priority of this council, which is our fiscal responsibility, which is the number one reason we were voted in, of how we're going to spend our taxpayers' money, and we are responsible for holding the city accountable.
Why are you reluctant then to say that these percentages are faulty and tell us what you think they should be?
I didn't say they were faulty.
Why have the other discussion if you're
Because I
inferring
think
that these
there
are
are pressing
faulty?
needs to the city that go outside just saying, let's keep the police at 25, let's keep general government at 11, let's keep culture and recreation at 16. I mean, we can budget in to bring it down to scale, we can budget in our personal lives, but, if someone gets in an accident and their jaw breaks, they are going to now need that year to put more into dentistry, orthodontistry, whatever. And that is a thing that you have to face every year. What's the budget going to be? You reallocate, right?
Clearly.
So that's what I'm saying. We have some pressing things that this public has made very aware this entire year that we haven't been addressing by just saying percentage. So, I've said it clearly. I'm one of five. So that is what I'm saying is we need to look at the priorities of the city right now. And I just think saying keep it the same is not that's not doing our fiscal responsibility.
Okay, but if you've got people screaming at you with priorities, what are they and what should we change?
Okay, with the $2 million, that's why I want time. I want to go through all those presentations, okay.
You want to know what the delta is between 17 and 21% going into the
No, I am not talking about the general funds. No, I think I've spoken very clearly. I want to go back and look at the...
I don't think you have. I think what you're saying is that you don't want to make a choice about what to change about this pie chart tonight because you feel like you don't have enough information after all of this?
Mayor,
I apologize.
Can I
I'm
make a
being
comment?
a bit combative here.
Can I make a comment?
Any other comments?
I've never looked at our pie chart as only through the percentages or only through the finances, but they really do coincide together. In this case here, the fire department needed extra bodies, so it's going to shift the entire percentages for the whole pie. Am I correct on that, Stacy?
It can only be that way.
So right. So for me, I don't look at the percentages as a factor in how things get distributed. Just because I know that something is happening in one department, it's going to change the percentages for all. I also look at numbers. So, what the amount of that goes into each department. To me, those two go hand in hand. But I think there's a very valid question. To me, 51%, if I believe that if government's number one job is public safety, 51% of our budget is really stating that we are prioritizing public safety as our number one priority. In addition, I was going to say something else, left my mind. Anyways, I think what I'm not hearing is if we do readjust the percentages and we remove it, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that there are bodies, people, employees attached to the other percentages. So if we move the percentages, we have to be very clear of the unintended consequences that it's going to have in the other departments. People will get laid off if we decide to shift to public safety being 60% of our budget. It's going to impact people's livelihood, jobs, and will end up resulting in layoffs. So as far as the percentages goes, 51% to public safety, to me, is sending a strong message. I'm comfortable with the current breakdown. If we're looking at just percentages or allocations, I'm fine with this current structure going into the next budget.
Okay, very good. I don't want to make it seem like I don't agree with Councilwoman Rohrbaugh entirely. I do agree with one part of this, and that's why I kept asking the question over and over again. And that's your point that we do have a choice about how much we put into the unassigned fund balance. And that does act like additional revenue, and we should make a considered decision about where to put those chips. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. All I'm saying is that we can do that after we give direction on this. That was all I was ultimately getting to.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have questions?
I do. Stacy, roughly what are you thinking the structural deficit is going to be for this? About $500,000?
That's about what we had. And then it just compounds over the next 5 years.
Okay. So if, for example, we were to sell a piece of property, let's say, and net at least $500,000, does that buy us some time?
Yeah, it buys you some time to do what you're doing now, but doesn't handle any of the additional needs or any expansion to services or personnel.
Right. So generally, to answer these questions, generally speaking, I am comfortable with the way the pie is cut because I do think it shows that our priority is public safety, as it should be. As I've said before, the problem is we're working with a medium-sized pizza here, and we need a large pizza or an extra large pizza. But I'm not willing to make a severe change to the way this pie is cut because it would be to the detriment of another department. And as we've heard tonight, every single department has very legitimate needs. So I'm fine with, this is kind of like, the city manager could go forward and base a preliminary budget off this. And then in the future, if we just say, hey, well, if we wanted to, for example, add a training chief for the fire department, whatever, and we had to take something away. I mean, I think those are tweaks that could be made a little bit later on. I will say, in response to Councilmember Rohrbaugh, I'm also willing to have a conversation about, hey, instead of having the reserve on the higher end of that 20%, let's have it at 17% because we do have such dire needs that maybe we can do some capital projects. But I would also remind this council, the 21.4 or whatever that it is right now, that's based on this current year's budget. The next year's budget is going to be bigger, which automatically reduces the fund balance. And then the second thing is our fund balance is inflated right now because we owe money to the risk management fund. And so I guess bottom line for me is, yes, I'd like to keep the pie about the same. I understand it may change by a percentage here or there. And then, yes, I would like to have further discussion about whether to or not to use some of the unassigned fund balance for one-time funds. But I would also like to hopefully make a meaningful contribution or repayment back to that risk management fund. But back to my first question, I do think that we ought to consider, a couple of years ago, we had a conversation in the council about selling, there's a property on Bidwell, I can't think of it, but it's kind of a long skinny one, Pam, Bidwell Street right there by, something like that, which is probably surplus property that we really don't need. Maybe we need to think about selling some of those things just to create some one-time funds.
Sure. All right. Go ahead.
No. I know we covered, even in my previous conversation also, beginning on that. When we identify the additional revenue because of the estimations, we as a council has to sit rather than just simply going on the percentages. That's one thing I just want to put that out. If we have $1 million, no, let's not cut the $1 million into the same pie. Look at the top priorities we are facing, and even on the excess funds also. That's where I think we have a sensible, rather than changing this in a drastic.
Yeah, it's a bottom-up style of making that
That's
decision.
what I think Anna Roba is insisting on. Let's not go because we have a dire needs here. And thank you for saying, even though we have 21.5% excess, but we have right now we are hungry. We've got to, until we get the extra large pizza, maybe a few years from now, right? Okay, so that's my point. I think at high level, okay.
Okay. Madam City Manager and Mr. City Attorney, do you need an actual motion to go forth with this percentage breakdown as a starting point, or is 4 of the 5 of us
I feel
saying
like
that we're
I've-
good with it tonight.
I feel like I've heard direction unless Steve feels that we need a
No,
motion.
this is direction to staff, and I think we have majority of the council giving the same direction to staff.
All right, so there it is then.
Thank
All
you.
right. We're going to move on to council requests for future agenda items. And I think we obviously have one to discuss what percentage we want to hold in the unassigned fund balance for this coming year at some point when it's appropriate.
Okay. Got it.
Anybody else? Agenda items? Okay, very good. City manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The application window for local nonprofit groups to sell state-approved fireworks in the city of Folsom is open and continues through noon, March 15th. Folsom clubs such as youth sports clubs, school booster clubs, and other civic organizations are eligible to sell safe and sane fireworks, and you can apply at folsom.ca.us/fireworks. The Senior Center Lounge will be closed from Tuesday, February 20th through Friday, March 1st. The lounge will be receiving a much-needed facelift with bright new paint, deep cleaning, and minor repair work. The Senior Lounge closure will not affect the Meals on Wheels Senior Lunch Program, fitness and exercise programs that take place in the multipurpose room, or any of the regularly scheduled art classes, the gallery at 48 Natoma, or the registration counter at 48 Natoma. Let's see, the library is hosting its 5th annual Lego building contest. I think many of the council members have already signed up to be judges, so thank you for that. Whether you're a young apprentice or a seasoned master Lego builder, this is your choice to show the community what you can construct. Submit your creations to the library from February 20th through February 24th. And for more information, you can go to the library's website. Folsom Parks and Recreation is accepting applications for a variety of summer job opportunities. Opportunities include staff for youth and teen summer camps and lifeguards, swim instructors, cafe and party staff, and front office assistants at the Steve Miklos Aquatic Center. Group interviews for aquatic center positions and lifeguard training begin in March, and you can find out more at folsom.ca.us/HR. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Fantastic. Rosario.
I do not have anything. I think this is the first time where I don't have anything. It's quiet out there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm good.
Everybody got over the holiday bump, and
I don't know, it's
things are a little
quiet.
settled right now. Anna,
The
any
only thing I
comments?
have is just a follow-up from the agenda review that I asked for the percentage and numbers used for the assumptions for the structural deficit. So just reiterating that hopefully that we can get that within a week or two. And you verbally wrote the assumptions I saw on your presentation, but I'm looking for the numbers, like what percentage are we using to calculate that 5 years out? What is the growth rate that we're using? Are we calculating the growth that we've seen come this year and the future years within that 5 years, inflation rate, that kind of thing? That's what I'm looking at, just the assumptions for that graph.
Okay. Mr. Chalem-Jarla.
I know, Mayor, last time also, I think I should have brought this when you were asking for the agenda items. We were all there at the joint school district meeting with the 2 city councils and school board. Yes, we have calculated the money 15 years ago, how much each school building is going to cost. Now it is exponentially changed. We really has to take a stab very soon. I know we are talking about the budget and administration here, but how do we do, what do we do? Because Ranch Cordova is going very aggressively to submit an application based on our last recommendation.
Okay, I apologize because I'm not sure I understood exactly. Are you saying that we should be looking at what additional costs may fall on the city if the school district chooses to split itself up, or costs to split it? Or just subsidizing the school district in some way through the city's budget?
In partnership with our city council and school district, how we are going to support future school constructions in Folsom Plan area. Right now, we don't have money.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? We don't know, but we got to proactively plan on that one, whatever the ground
Support
rules.
financially?
Financially. It doesn't have to be, again, I'm using the word in collaboration with the school district.
Yeah.
we as a city, we are responsible, at least we have a fair share of responsibility for South of 50 residents,
Okay.
how we can help them.
Okay, so perhaps just a relatively short workshop item on what options there might be
Yeah.
if we wanted to try and help support their construction program.
Go on our own, like SFID2, for example.
So the school district funding in California for facilities, was discussed at that meeting, I'm sure, comes from developer fees, and it comes from property taxes, and it comes from state funding, right? So there isn't a role for the local city necessarily in any of those things. There have been instances where the bonding capacity of the city of Folsom was used to help subsidize some construction, where the city borrowed the money, but it was, the revenue was actually paid from those other three sources ultimately. So that it would be worthwhile to have a discussion about that, what those options are and what has happened on other instances. Is that what you're asking for?
I am.
Okay, all right.
Because, yes.
I hear you. Okay, all right, very good. That's a incredibly complicated topic. Yeah.
It is, because when we go out, especially Sarah and I also on that side, that's the first question, right?
Of course.
They don't know. I mean, again, I'm going to pull Bruce Klein here, right? They won't understand the difference between state government, the school board, to the city government. They ask, she's our council member, when is our next high school coming, middle school coming? That's
I think that'd be a worthwhile discussion to have, and perhaps we invite the superintendent or the CBO from the district to help with describing those things.
I would just want to make sure we have the right people in the room that actually, this is their area of expertise.
I think the chief business official for the school district would be a good candidate for helping fill out that discussion in terms of what's possible. So, okay.
That way we are equipped, and in case, we're going to be split or we're going to release one more bond, what do we do?
Okay. Anything else? Anything else today?
That's all. That's a big one.
That's
It's
a big
coming
one.
up because that's going, it's hot topic right now. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Madam Vice Mayor.
I have a few things, but I'll talk quickly. So last month, I invited all of the vice mayors in Sacramento County and the vice chair of the Board of Supervisors to join me for lunch. And so 5 of the 8 of us were able to make it, just getting to know each other and talking about items of mutual interest and what's happening in our respective cities. So I think everybody's willing to take a turn. So we'll be going to Sacramento with Vice Mayor Katie Maple next. Also last month, I attended District Attorney Tin Ho had his inaugural State of Public Safety address. And just a couple takeaways from that. Since January 2021, there have been over 600 fentanyl deaths in Sacramento County. He has created a rapid fentanyl response team. He gave a particular shout out to the work that the Folsom Police Department has done in trying to hold some of those dealers accountable. So, it's one of those things where we're proud of the police department, but also sad that we're in the position to have that expertise for the county. So. Also, he's created an organized retail theft unit with a full-time prosecutor and a full-time investigator, so that is good news. The other day, I watched a recent meeting of the City of Citrus Heights, their council. It's frequently mentioned that Folsom and Citrus Heights are the only 2 cities in the county that don't have a local sales tax measure. They are considering allowing marijuana dispensaries in their city and approving a tax with that. So anyway, that's something that they're considering. Not something I'm personally willing to consider, but interesting to know that they are. Also, I recently watched the candidate forum for the mayor of the city of Sacramento that was hosted by the Sacramento Bee. 4 of the top candidates were featured. 2 of them had been on the Sacramento City Council prior, and they made the claim that just like the city of Folsom, city of Sacramento has fewer officers today than they did pre-recession. So I asked the city manager to verify that with her counterpart. It is indeed true. Back in 2008, they had 804 officers. Today, they have 747 and 100 vacancies. So anyway, just interesting to see what's happening in other cities. Very quickly, as you know, I represent the city on the Air Quality Management District Board. We just got some news recently from the federal EPA. There is something that we measure for. It's called PM 2.5. It stands for particulate matter. It's fine inhalable particulates with diameters of 2.5 micrometers and smaller. And right now, we have been meeting the standard that has been set by the EPA. Well, they are now changing the standard, and they're lowering the acceptable amount from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9, which means that we no longer are in attainment with that. And so that will result in the Air District having to take some measures to hopefully get us into attainment. And then finally, just want to give a shout out to Chief Casano. As you probably heard, he won the Chief's Challenge that benefited the Firefighters Burn Institute. I think they raised about $35,000. He raised over 12,000 of that himself. And I just got to say, it felt really good when I got a congratulatory email from former Fire Chief Felipe Rodriguez congratulating the city of Folsom and Chief Casano. So way to represent, Chief. Thank you.
We're going to have Chief Casano solve our shortfall just through fundraising efforts.
Perfect. I want to thank everybody for pinch hitting for me earlier, and I want to just add my congratulations to all the smart kids that go play for the Junior Bulldogs. And with that, I will call this meeting to a close at 10:28. We are adjourned.